These two girls go crazy over the hot cashier, but the MC is staring at what looks like a full-grown monkey behind the counter. He finds it gross, and let me tell you why. Haseon has this weird talent for spotting horrific creatures pretending to be human. Most of them are harmless background NPCs, but right after he leaves, that same cashier is eyeing him. Yeah, you can smell the trouble coming. Later, when Haseon is alone, 3 guys drop down right above him. He looks up, nearly dies on the spot in panic, apologizes for stuff he never did, and tries to escape, but nope, fate already hates him. Turns out the stranger is some Venom-type dude asking if Haseon can see through their disguises. Haseon never bothered wondering how or when these creatures learned his secret, but he panics first and runs for his life next. The Venom guy casually throws snakes and those Venom noodles bite into our boy before he even reacts. He feels every cell freezing from the poison. They call our boy weird name Bium and tell him to stop acting clueless and show his power. That's when Haseon snaps, these idiots seriously jumped the wrong person. A giant tiger bursts out of nowhere, knocking Haseon off his feet. He wonders why God sends a tiger when he is clearly a cat person. Suddenly, a massive explosion hits, and the Venom dude finally realizes the monkey detective was right. This guy really does have an ancient seal spell. The tiger shifts back into a regular human and apologizes to Haseon for keeping him waiting, and then turns to attackers. The lackeys think Biam's some newborn cub they can bully. Poor idiots don't realize this tiger plans to eat them for breakfast. He smacks one into the dirt like it's nothing. The second jumps in, only to get shut down by a leg slam and tossed aside like yesterday's trash. Then the venomous serpents slither in with their deadly bite. The serpent dude prays the venom freezes Biam in place. Turns out Biam casually crushes the snakes like stress balls. He drags the serpent guy in and claws straight through him. The dude splits into snakes and vanishes. Biam just clicks his tongue. Annoyed, the pest slipped away. Still, our hero ends up safe. Later, Bohm wakes Haseon up a little roughly, demanding food. Haseon, still recovering from Bohm's dramatic entrance, is more annoyed than grateful. Even after Bohm insists he's hungry, Haseon doubts this savior really deserves the title. Lost in thoughts about the snake bites, he just heads to the kitchen. While cooking breakfast, Haseon finally asks if Bohm is really the tiger from the Dangun myth. Bohm asks what Dangun is. Haseon calls him nasty to steal cat food, but Biam, a cat at heart, shrugs it off and tells the cat to back off. Haseon can't believe he's dealing with a legendary tiger and wonders about the snake freak. Biam ignores him, casually ripping Haseon's shirt open with a flick of air. He asks about Haseon's necklace, and after learning it's from his mom, pushes Haseon into a chair. Biam warns that things are about to get tricky. Haseon lightly whacks him on the head, declaring he's fine as long as those claws stay away. The next day, a new kid named Lee Young shows up in Haseon's class. Everyone's chill about it, but Haseon looks troubled. So there's this bully named Mansu, who runs into Young by pure bad luck. Mansu even grabs Young's head, but Young still smiles. Mansu loses it, swings at Young, but bam, Young's real side comes out. Mansu freezes like he can't even process what just happened, while his goons stand there confused. Then Mansu grabs a chair and turns it on them and starts to beat the crap out of them. While Young rejoices, Sojin peeks in quietly and is shocked to see the chaos. She rushes outside to find Haseon, but before she can explain, Young pops up behind her asking if she's talking about him. Sojin stands frozen, probably still in a post-jump scare daze, but strangely, Haseon starts walking away. Young tags along like it's the most normal thing in the world, asking if he can crash at Haseon's place. Sejin, sharp as ever, hits Haseon with a major task he didn't even know was on his plate, and he just nods like it's fine. They split, patting themselves on the back for being responsible, but it's a total disaster waiting to happen. Later, Sejin walks alone when Young suddenly pops up behind her, asking if she really thinks she can escape after messing up his plan. Next thing she knows, she's standing on the window ledge of a tall, empty building, quietly calling Haseon for help, while Young stands right there. One wrong move and she's toast. You see, Young has an ability of mind control that keeps her frozen, and he was sent by the Yacha gang to catch Haseon. 3 more vagrants show up, and one of them tells Young that their focus should be on Haseon, not some girl. Right then, Haseon storms in and is taken aback to see Sojin about to fall. As she tips outside, she says her body's under Young's control. Our hero yells for her to hang on, while he goes after her. But he's a total introvert and doesn't even ask why they're being targeted. The vagrants watch from a distance, confused about how a weak guy like Haseon is keeping a beast like Biam in check. Meanwhile, Young is still losing it, unwilling to accept the situation. Our hero calls out to Young, questioning his sanity. Young yells back, wanting to see just how pathetic Haseon really is. Suddenly, Sojin slips out the window. As she falls, the vagrants and Haseon can only stare in shock. She hits the ground hard, and Young laughs while our boy collapses under the weight of losing her. Young turns to the senior vagrants, saying Haseon has no powers at all, and that the goon is gross for not even being able to back up his own nasty acts. Young snaps at them, angry that they've been belittling him since he started. He admits he only stuck around to figure out Haseon's powers, but now it's obvious the guy's just trash. Our hero jumps him from behind, but Young freezes him in place, warning he's not in the mood for any killing today. One vagrant grabs Young's arm, insisting they need Haseon without a scratch on him. This just fires Young up again, but the senior tries to calm him down, so Young takes control of the guy's body, making him twist his own neck and break the rest of it. The others shout in disbelief, and Young tells them to sit tight if they want to stand again. He then turns to our boy and chokes him until he can't breathe. But suddenly a vagrant behind Young bursts with dark energy, which gets sucked right into Haseon. No one knows how he's consuming that dark mist like it's nothing, but now he's overflowing with power. Finally, our hero snaps back to control, feeling that wild energy coursing through him. Young gets all hyped to finally face someone who's actually a challenge. Our hero charges, and Young blocks it with that same annoying swagger. But when our boy unleashes a big blast, Young spits blood and freaks out, questioning how Haseon broke free from his spell. He starts twisting his own arm, shocked that Haseon is fighting back with his own power. Haseon grabs him, furious about Suffojin, and says Young's gotta pay for what he did to her. Young just smirks, thinking Haseon has no idea he's about to lose everyone. Our hero smacks him so hard that Young, in pain, actually wonders when this loser got so strong. Our hero leaps up, slams a punch, and the wall shatters, sending Young falling off the building, cursing as he goes. But then Young's body explodes with dark energy. Our hero reacts quickly, trying to get away as it tries to invade him, but it's too late. His body pulls it in and he collapses, knocked out. The vagrants finally see their chance to grab him, but then they feel something even worse. Bikemsum lands in front of them, and they freak out. Before they can escape, Bikemsum blocks their path. Seeing Haseon knocked out, he tenses up, grabs one of the goons, and demands to know who they are. The guy clams up, so Bium chokeslams him without hesitation. The remaining vagrant panics and spills that they're hitmen for the vagrants. Bium presses him for who hired them, squeezing his throat, and the guy quickly cracks, revealing they were sent by the Yacha gang. The scene shifts to the Yacha gang, where the DJ is pumping up the crowd. Over in one corner, a clean-cut guy tells a bossy woman that some DJ named Miho is suddenly taking the club by storm. She brushes him off and walks away with her crew. Little does she know she's actually Dokshini, the one in charge of the Yacha gang. She slides into a meeting that looks like total chaos. It turns out the neat guy was right. Miho's a vagrant too, and he's got his fox ears perked up trying to listen in. Inside, the gang is hatching plans to catch Haseon. Dokshini thinks they don't have to worry about Bing waking up, claiming her thugs handled it. It's kind of hilarious that she has no idea they're all dead, and even the other gangsters remind her that Bing is the strongest vagrant out there. She poses dramatically while pouring herself a drink, brushing it off as just wishful thinking. Just then the door slams open and a guard drags in Miho. He explains who he caught while Miho is sweating bullets, saying he was just trying to find the bathroom. Shiny notices that Miho isn't scared at all, which makes her tense up. She jumps at him, yanks him, and slams him against the wall. Miho actually asks if that's all it takes to leave a tiny scar and starts making fun of her muscles. She kicks him hard, but even while taking the hit, Miho keeps teasing her until she's about to lose it. Her crew rushes after him, and this wild fox doesn't hesitate to smash through a window and leap off the building. He lands perfectly fine and thinks he's escaped, but not for long. The boss lady dives at him from behind with her sharp claws. The way she moves is slick, almost human, but Miho's crazy defense keeps her from even touching him. Now it's Miho's turn. He powers up and shoots flames at Shine, but she just stands there pretending to be burned, which throws him off completely. From the fire, she figures out who he really is. Meanwhile, a black van is waiting, packed with a different team getting ready. The female leader, Yusio, tells her crew to chill. They'll make their move when the time's right. Cut to Seojin's lovely nightmare reel, and our hero jolts awake sweating buckets. Bium is parked beside him, telling him to chill a bit longer. Our guy asks what happened to those attacking vagrants, but Bium just stays annoyingly silent. Our boy says he's been seeing weird stuff since he was a kid, and his mom told him not to panic because those things were their friends. Bium asks about his mom, but our guy keeps thinking about those creepy vagrant faces, and the 3 new clowns who clearly weren't friendly. He snaps and asks why these guys are after him now. Bium dodges it and asks again where his mom is. Our boy finally says she passed away. Bium pulls out his necklace and asks if she said anything when she gave it. Our guy says she told him it would protect him and never come off. Then Bium says he needs to meet her, leaving our boy fully confused. Back at Yacha Club, Shinny is teasing Miho, calling him a cute spy, and joking about not wanting to mess up his face. He retorts with a quick babe, which totally catches her off guard. Taking advantage of the crowd around, he jumps high and scales a tall building. Shinny's annoyed by Miho's powers, but she's no slouch either, and follows him up, just as she's about to reach the top. Out of nowhere, Miho hits him with a fire square to the face, and blasts it with insane force. But she ducks midair and dodges it. Then Shinny takes a boxing stance and throws a punch aimed right at Miho's face. He's quick but can't avoid the next hit, and it lands hard. Miho realizes he's up against a serious opponent. With no options left, he flips back, but Shinny's right on his tail, targeting where he'll land. There's a huge boom as Yusio clears the area below, gearing up to jump into the fight. Meanwhile, Miho's head is spinning after taking that beastly hit. Shiny tells him he's only the second person to ever take her punch. Miho jokingly says he wants to meet the first person for real. She gets pumped, bulking up and tearing her shirt in the process. Miho gets into a defensive stance. For just a second, she blinks and sees Miho floating just out of her reach, which shocks her. Then he blasts fire at Shiny. She tries to block it, but the flames nearly scorch the entire rooftop. She ends up bruised and down on her knees, asking Miho when he landed in this world and why. Miho finally shows his true self and says he wants to find out exactly what her master wants. Turns out Shinny's also a vagrant, and she gets furious, but it's too late because Yuso and her crew show up, telling them to surrender. But instead, Shinny and Miho are just arguing about who brought in the third party. She winds up the banter by teasing him that next time he won't be able to take her hit and jumps off the building, acting like Yiseo is just boring homework. She lands effortlessly, leaving Yiseo stunned at how she can pull that off. Miho pops up right beside her, asking if she wants to know the truth. Yiseo freaks out and her crew aims their guns at him. Miho tells them to chill, saying he's ready to be caught. Miho plops down before the camera and claims he's a 50-year-old man. Yiseo takes a look at his face and tells him to quit lying. Miho spots the camera and instantly throws a cute pose, but Yiseo snaps back asking why he picked a fight with Jung. He shoots it right back at her, asking if she's sure she wants the real story. She pushes harder, pointing out that normal people don't blast flames or hop onto rooftops. He asks again if she seriously wants to know. They ping-pong questions until she finally asks why he gave up so fast, and if he's cooking up some deal. Our boy admits she's sharp for a field leader. She asks what he is. He raises his hand and asks if she truly wants the truth. The lights cut out and Miho reveals he is a nine-tailed fox as fire erupts behind him. He snaps the handcuffs like cheap toys and says you humans aren't the only tenants on this planet. Yiseo instantly aims his gun at him, clearly sensing the walking hazard in front of him. The scene shifts to the slums, where a man begs 3 thugs near some garbage to be civil. They don't care and say he can move, but only if he stays quiet. He gets beaten badly, and they demand their money. Suddenly, someone steps onto the wall behind them. One thug tells him to leave quietly. The newcomer grabs a baseball bat, and they laugh. Strange energy starts radiating from him. They mock him, asking if he really plans to swing it. He finally speaks, asking if they're scared. A close-up reveals he has only one eye, and the other side of his face has a strange bulging nerve-like growth. The goon keeps running his mouth until a baseball bat shuts him up and blasts him across the field like an actual ball, dropping him 50 meters away. He then tells the rest that if they want to stay alive, they should vanish fast. Cut to Miho's interrogation. Yiseo still thinks Miho is lying. Miho explains that every god in old myths was just a vagrant who slipped into this dimension. She asks if that means they're aliens from somewhere else. He says yes, adding that the god of war was a vagrant of power, greed, and bold guts, and the goddess of love was a vagrant of endless beauty. They come from different ages and places, but they've been living around humans forever. She accepts it, and says she'll just remind him of something he already knows. They are the intel team watching the Yacha gang. She suspects the leader Jung-yoon of having strange powers. Miho says she's a vagrant too. She asks what powers she has. He tells her that if she had been shot earlier she likely would have grabbed the bullet, and he would never be dumb enough to try that himself. As he says this, he snaps his cuffs apart again, making them lift their guns. He then corrects her. Her name isn't Jung-yoon. Her real name is Duok Shini. Cut to Shini stepping into a quiet room. She bows to someone who mentions hearing about the mess at the club. She says it's nothing worth stressing over. Honestly, the author made this guy way too good-looking for his role. He asks Shiny why she looks so exhausted, and she fires back asking if he really wants to know who made her look that way. The guy brushes it off, saying it doesn't matter. Whoever did that just wanted the government to step in, and they totally succeeded. When Shiny tenses up, he assures her he's not scared of pathetic humans, and warns her about who will take over if she goes around killing people without thinking. He mentions a name and tells her to track the guy down. This dude is a strong vagrant, and Shiny's job is to use him to bring in Haseon. As she leaves, someone named Imugi, lurking in the shadows, comments on Shiny's loyalty, calling her his strength. Imugi's pretty hyped to see just how strong she really is and alludes to some secret stuff Shiny is working on that she'll get recognized for later. Switching scenes, we see the goon basher where more thugs are gathering, cursing at him. He just lights up a smoke before getting ready to take them on. He asks if they're really there to see him smoke or to fight. Then he goes off, attacking with crazy speed and knocking one guy's face. He even nails a sliding blow that takes out all the goons right in the face. This dude fights like it's personal. One goon tries a sneak attack with a sword, but it shatters into pieces, leaving him stunned. The vagrant turns and slaps his elbow into the dude's face, not even bothering to finish him off, but the guy still dares to call him a monster. The vagrant pulls out a baseball bat and swings for the fences, imagining the goon's face as the ball. While he's chilling on top of the beat-up goons, Shiny rolls up with her crew. The goon basher figures out she's also a vagrant, and dares him to come any closer. Shiny cuts to the chase, and offers him a deal he can't ignore. Fast forward 2 days, and our hero is on the move, processing all the heavy stuff Biom just laid on him. BM spilled that 5,000 years ago he was sealed inside the necklace that Haseon's mom gave him. He was just stuck in darkness for an eternity, neither asleep nor awake. Now he wants to piece together what happened during all that time and why the necklace ended up with Haseon. Without it, he can hardly get by. Back to the present, BM is super chill, and our hero asks about that random burst of power he had when he fought Young. He tries to tap into it again, but nothing happens. While munching on some chips, BM says he's definitely human, just a bit off, and it's all because that necklace somehow ended up in his family. When our hero wonders if he might be a vagrant too, BM shoots that down immediately, saying there's no way. Even if he were, he'd just be the weakest one around, and to prove it, he struggles to open a bag of chips. BM mentions that vagrants can sense each other and know when one's nearby. Just as he says that, he stands up and looks behind him. The train's rolling along quietly, and a dark figure steps into their section. BM's eyes light up, signaling caution, but it's that same goon-bashing guy who still doesn't care at all. He seems way too relaxed even though Balam is giving him a death stare, so Balam realizes he can't take this guy on with Haseon in the way. BM grabs our boy and bolts. He pauses when he feels something moving behind him. The vagrant has already jumped up, swinging at him. By the time he swings hard, BM's nowhere in sight. BM and the vagrant lock eyes, and he asks if the dude is just another hitman for the Yacha gang. He lunges at the vagrant with a punch, but the guy dodges. BM quickly follows up with a kick to his face, sending him crashing through the door. BM's riding a rush of power while the battered vagrant wonders why he's never seen BM before. BM shrugs it off, saying it's just because he's new around here. The vagrant grabs a baseball bat and tells BM to shut up, then hurls it at him with insane speed. BM steps up to block it. Using the moment, the vagrant connects with BM's shoulder, and a crack echoes as they collide. He's not finished though. He kicks at BM's face. Suddenly they're outside the train. BM demands to know why this freak is going after some innocent kid. The vagrant smirks and says that the innocent boy is actually his target, which really ticks BM off. The scene shifts to a luxury resort where a woman is chilling in the sun. One of her guys, Fred, asks if the vagrant she hired is any good. She asks if he knows any fairy tales, and he says he remembers too. She goes on to explain that the vagrant is just like those super violent, destructive characters from his stories. Turns out her name is Shinny, and the vagrant's name is Dakabe. Cut to Doc swinging his baseball bat like he's got a serious grudge against BM. BM's having a tough time keeping up with the explosive attacks. Things get really heated as these two powerhouses throw down non-stop. BM starts to feel like Doc is really pushing him. Deciding it's time to end this, BM goes all out, his aura flaring and his nails turning monstrous. Doc can't believe what just happened. It's already too late. BM goes for him with this crazy move, the Pale Mist Claw, and cracks Doc's special bat. Doc quickly tries to defend himself. BM charges at him like a blur while Doc swings his bat, but he's already too late. Doc gets a shock and tries to swing again, but totally misses. Suddenly, BM is right behind him, gathering this wild energy in his arm. Doc totally lost track of him. He turns around just in time to see BM's second attack coming in hot. The new move, the Inferno Claw, tears through Doc, leaving a bloody, fiery trail. Doc coughs up blood and goes crashing onto the train tracks. BM's face goes beet red, and he shuts his eyes thinking he's some kind of action hero. But then the real hero shouts a warning, just as BM gets hit by a train, slamming him against the front window and making him realize how many aura points he just lost in front of Haseon. Now Haseon's all alone, and to make things worse, Doc is starting to wake up. Our hero is sweating like crazy when Doc shows up right in front of him, casually telling him to come along quietly. Doc notices that Haseon looks super scared, and he remembers getting Haseon's details and being told to bring him in. Back then, people back home were acting strange. They knew something was up but only took a little peek, and even Shinny thought it was odd. Still, she told Doc that BM would be the main issue he'd have dragging the kid in. Now at the moment, Doc is just straight up stabbing Haseon in the shoulders. He's thinking about how this weak kid could ever be a threat. The dark mist around them starts acting funny again. Before Doc can even process it, he lands a hard punch on Haseon, who starts bleeding. Doc calls Jason for some backup. Haseon finally shows some fight and bites Doc's arm, but he gets smacked away like a volleyball and crashes to the ground. Panicking, Haseon tries to run, but Doc appears out of nowhere and hits him again, telling him to stop messing around and start walking. Outside the tunnel, BM jumps back with crazy speed, looking dead serious. Inside, Doc's dragging Haseon, who's crying about his bad luck and wondering why everyone seems to want him gone. However, as Haseon pulls on Doc's arm and yells, his eyes light up. Doc catches a glimpse of him leaking some weird energy and curses. But it's too late because Haseon makes his move. As BM gets closer, he feels a heavy energy and thinks maybe it's another stray, but this one feels off to him. Back with Doc, he's losing it and can't believe what's happening. His weapon drops, and he feels his joints cracking. As Haseon pushes his spell, Doc's bones break and he crumples to the floor, screaming. Haseon casts another spell and it dives into Doc's memories. Suddenly, he finds himself in a void, remembering when he wanted to help the sick and broken. He questions if he's even the same guy anymore. Back in reality, all the malice drains from his eyes. A train almost hits him, but he barely jumps out of the way. Now there's a bigger monster staring him down, and Doke knows he's done for. As the train rolls past, Doke spots Byeom's body glowing with a fierce energy. Byeom's furious at Doke for even touching Haseon, totally unaware of how much Haseon has already messed him up. The scene shifts outside the lab, where Imugi brings Shinny along, and they run into that weird guy from earlier. Imugi can tell right off the bat that the experiment worked, and the guy outright admits it. Turns out he's Haseon too, a famous doctor that Shinny never thought she'd actually meet. He breaks down the whole process pretty simply. They took Haseon's DNA, tossed it into a test kit, and just waited to see how the body reacted. Imugi asks how the results turned out, and the doc says they were insane. Better strength, stamina, reflexes, and healing. Imugi jokes about feeling jealous, but the doc quickly points out the downside. Those boosts don't last long, and the kid goes back to normal in a day. To get the full benefits from what the body produces, they'll need the real deal. Imugi catches on right away. They need to bring Haseon here. He asks how the test subject is doing, and the doc mentions that the failed implant left the kid in pretty rough shape. Imugi doesn't care and asks the doc to wake the kid up since he wants to say hi. The doc powers him up while complaining that in 2,000 years of research he's never seen anyone hold power like this, wondering if it's some kind of divine influence. Imugi cracks a joke, saying maybe it's a warning instead. Suddenly, the test subject wakes up in a rage, and Imugi's just standing there like he's been waiting for this moment. The guy starts spitting insults, and Imugi fires back, mentioning his awful mouth, hinting at some backstory. The guy's so furious he cracks the window and starts yelling about wanting to kill Imugi. The doc freaks out, but Imugi just smirks. The subject charges at Imugi, screaming like he thinks he's a god. Shinny's eyes light up and she jumps in right away, smashing him before he can reach Imugi. The lab goes crazy as she chases him down and he's surrounded by dark energy. Imugi just watches the chaos, disappointed because he was only looking for a solution, not a full-blown fight. Imugi starts to take off his gloves, raises his hand, and lightning zaps across his fingers. Before Shinny can react, he fires a blast at the subject that hits hard enough to turn him to smoke and ash. Shinny's left stunned by how quickly it all goes down. Imugi steps up to the massive hole he made with just one hit and says he's not a god, he's here to challenge them. While the enemies get ready to throw down, Byeom is on a ship battling with seagulls trying to steal his shrimp chips, swatting them away with his claws while our boy is still out cold. He remembers when Byeom asked why he stopped him from going after Duck, and our boy said it was because Duck already has a place where he's needed. The scene shifts to those same slums where Duck is stumbling through the streets, drenched in blood. People rush to him as he finally collapses, and it's obvious they're the ones he's been fighting for all this time. Back at the lab, Shiny gets a call and tells Imugi that Doc messed up trying to grab Haseon. She decides to handle it herself, but Imugi jumps in and says he'll go instead. She's a bit shocked, but he gives her a sly grin, saying he hasn't felt this excited in ages and that his heart is racing. Meanwhile, our hero's ship lands on a totally deserted island. He explains it's Baikwa Island, where he lived until he was 7, even though he can't really recall anything about the place. Beam urges him to take the lead, but our boy snaps back, telling Beam to follow him since it's his island. As they explore deeper, he realizes everything has changed. Even his memories don't match what's around, and he starts to wonder if something went down here. He remembers racing through those paths with friends and hearing his mom calling him back home, but when he sees their old house in ruins, he's shocked. Beam quickly points out that it wasn't just a regular fire, and looks like a vagrant's doing. Out of nowhere, the nymph of Baikwa appears, watching them. Curious, Beam asks Haseon about his mom. Haseon says she was a respected shaman. After she passed, people started whispering she had revealed too much about nature. Beam asks how she died, but Haseon can't remember, no matter how hard he tries. Then all of a sudden he gets a flash. Imugi is throwing lightning at his mom's house. He wonders if that memory is legit, and if Imugi's somehow involved. Beam tells him to chill and calls out to whoever's lurking around. A sneaky dude pops up, looking smug, muttering about how these explorers seem to have some powers. Beam tells him to stop being creepy. The guy vanishes, then reappears further away, accusing Beam of stealing minerals from the island. Beam calmly questions why he's talking with his back turned. The vagrant replies that the back defines a person. That line hits Haseon hard, triggering a memory of someone grabbing his back. Beam asks the old man who he really is. The vagrant teases him, quickly jumping behind them before taking a fighting stance, ready to show them what he's got. Beam cracks his knuckles, saying he might look young, but he's the only elder in the room. He charges first, calling himself the Korean god of the brawl. The vagrant gets ready, eager to see if the legends hold true. He swings, but Beam glides past and slips behind him. The old man grins, saying that's exactly where he wants him. He strikes again, but Beam keeps dodging, teasing him about being too slow. The vagrant gets annoyed and tries to slap him, but Beam avoids it. Eventually Beam lands a hit across his back, causing clear damage. The old man winces and admits he's starting to get who Beam is, but still mockingly says he expected more from those skinny legs. Beam freezes, irritated, and warns the old man that he's really not in a place to talk. He slashes twice at lightning speed and asks if that still feels weak, insisting the old man repeat what he said about his legs. Byum points out he can see the old man's moves before he even thinks of them. With the vagrant now bruised and stumbling, Byum steps up asking if he's ready to spill the beans on who he really is. The old man stays quiet for a moment, then his hand bursts with energy. Suddenly a massive stone structure shoots up from the ground and slams into Byum's face, sending him flying. The vagrant straightens up, grinning, and asks if they're still curious about his identity. More stone pillars erupt around them as he gets ready. The old vagrant lifts his head and announces that the real fight starts now. Byum adjusts his jaw after taking a solid hit and gets annoyed when he spots the old vagrant showing off his muscles. He quietly goes after the guy, unaware that the old vagrant has set up another sneak attack. Suddenly the ground starts to split open, and out pop these wild, messed up Sigma-face structures. Byum quickly figures out that this guy is blocking him with those things. Then one of those structures slams into him right in the balls, so bad that his sperm production department officially quits on him, and he crumples over. The old man introduces himself as Jang Sung, and Byum is taken aback when he suddenly recognizes him as his old vagrant. Even Jang seems a bit thrown as he remembers Haseon. Byum asks if they know each other, and Jang finally connects the dots that Haseon is there. He squeezes Haseon's cheeks, saying he missed him so much. Jang takes Byum through a strange passage and says someone's waiting for him. Inside, Byum finds a picture of his mom that hits him hard, but Jang keeps it chilled and leads them to his place. Byum asks why he started a fight without properly introducing himself. Jang shoots him a harsh look, still feeling the pain from those claw marks. However, Jang lights up when he sees Haseon, finally feeling some relief after worrying for 10 years. Byum asks how his mom died, and Jang prompts him to remember the storm, the lightning strike, and some shady guy watching from afar. Then he fills in the blanks. Back in the day, his mom was involved with a dangerous guy, a wannabe dragon, and realized there was no way to stop him, so she focused on keeping her kids safe instead. She handed little Haseon a family necklace and made him promise to protect it. He didn't fully understand back then, but she had faith that he could handle whatever came next. Now Jang finally drops the name, the Amugi. Just hearing it sends chills down Byum's spine. Meanwhile, a scared vagrant is sprinting through a bunch of tall buildings, chased by Miho, who's calm but radiating power. Miho tells him to trust him, insisting he only wants to talk. The snake-faced vagrant collapses, bleeding and shaking. Miho demands to know where Byum is, the one he accidentally awakened as the poor guy keeps bleeding out. Miho is chatting with Yuseo, the intel girl, about this old legend where the Bear Clan and Tiger Clan were duking it out for control of the land. She reminisces about the founding myth, adding that while it's all a bit exaggerated, people tend to overlook who really led that epic showdown. Miho reveals that Byum is the god of the brawl, and the leader of the Tiger Clan. When Yuseo asks if the Bear Clan came out on top, Miho confirms they did, but Byum mysteriously disappears right before the final round, giving the bears a major advantage and letting them wrap things up quickly. Yuseo wonders if they're currently hunting Byum, and Miho says yes, explaining that the Yacha gang broke his seal and wants to use him. They need to take action because even if the gang manages to bring Byum over to their side, they might end up needing to take him out. Meanwhile, Byum looks like he could take on anyone, facing off against a giant bear. He throws his classic claw slash, and when the bear gives up, he strikes a victory pose. But he's still not convinced this bear is the top vagrant. Then Jang douses him with water, trying to give him some waterfall vibes. Jang thinks there's real power in Byum, but it's buried under a lot of rust. Byum agrees he's noticed that too, and that's how their training kicks off. The first day is all about running. The first week involves light deadlifts, healthy food, and steady workouts. Byum realizes he needs to embrace this power while staying calm to manage it. But then thoughts of Sojin, Young, and Dok pop into his head, totally ruining his peace of mind. Suddenly, a dark memory hits him, an Amugi wrecking his home, and trash-talking the Bear Clan, calling it a burnt-out ruin. Back then, little Haseon wanted to rush into the flames, but someone held him back. Now his eyes flash red, and he's got this heavy feeling that something bad happened to Haseon. Jang quickly wraps Byum in a hug as he goes off from all that dark energy. Both of them realize the dead vagrant's power Haseon absorbed is messing with his mind. Jang can't believe this is really Haseon. He's giving off some serious raw rage. Byum keeps drawing in that dark energy until he's strong enough to break Jang's hold and lunges at Byum. Byum dodges just in time. Haseon strikes again, and Byum starts to wonder how he got so good all of a sudden. He grabs Haseon's arms and begs Jang to do something before Haseon completely loses control. But Jang's frozen, staring into Haseon's eyes, which aren't even his anymore. They've got to snap Haseon out of this dark energy's grip, or he'll get lost forever. Byum puts in all his effort to push Haseon away, and Jang jumps in to help, turning it into a tag team situation. He tells Byum he might have heard the old tale about some Arcanum passed to the nymph of the Bear Clan. Byum spins around and gives Jang a solid smack. He's shocked that Haseon can not only handle the dead vagrant's power but actually use it. That means he's the living cub of the Bear Clan. Haseon lunges at Byum, grabbing his throat. Byum fights back, clawing at Haseon's throat, and it turns into a neck-and-neck struggle, like a pro wrestling match. Jang yells at Baeom, asking how he can let anything take control. Deep in his mind, he's having a conversation with his mother, asking who killed her. She tells him that some things can't be controlled, and knows he's facing a lot of cruelty. Even if he feels she's far away, she's always watching, and it hits him hard. Finally, he blasts out the dark energy, and everything snaps back to normal. Baeom stares wide-eyed at Haseon and says he's carrying 5,000 years of raw power. At night, while everyone's taking it easy at Jung's place, a girl sneaks in quietly. Her plan goes off without a hitch, and she lunges at Balum with her sharp claws. Just as she's about to land a hit, an explosion jolts Balum awake, leaving her a little disoriented. The goofy guy shows up, and the vagrant girl goes off on him for messing up her attack. Jang's freaking out, still wearing his eye mask and not able to see anything. Baeom is really ticked off. These attackers just wrecked his awesome dream. He warns them that they won't make it back alive. Meanwhile, outside, our hero is grinding away training against tall structures. He suddenly realizes all this chaos is happening because he's from the Bear clan. Just then, someone attacks him out of nowhere, but thankfully he manages to block it. Another enemy closes in behind him, trapping him. A third guy rolls in with a flaming hand and blasts fire at our hero, who ducks just in time. This beast, a vagrant, looks down at him with a mix of pity and amusement. One of his buddies wants to take Haseon, and our hero is confused about who these guys even are. He decides to face them solo, but one vagrant decides to take a swing at him to test his strength. Back at Jang's house, Jang is holding his own and seems to be taking down the big guy with little effort. The girl notices him, but Baeom jumps in, landing some serious damage on her. It turns out she has some crazy healing powers. She warns Baeom that he's picking a fight with the wrong person. Baeom's losing it, asking about Haseon and putting the pieces together that they might be Yacha lackeys. The girl isn't flattered by his compliment, and says they're actually a bunch of assassins. Baeom figures that if they've got a girl with regeneration and a dude who brushes off punches, they must be a distraction to kidnap Haseon. Things are heating up now. Meanwhile, Haseon is barely keeping up as his opponent, who's like a living lightning bolt, throws punches and kicks. He struggles to dodge. The guy even snaps a selfie while landing a kick right to Haseon's face. Our hero is at a loss on how to handle this weirdo. Another vagrant steps in, telling the other to take a breather while he takes his turn beating Haseon up. Our hero wonders what he did to deserve this shift. As the vagrant swings his sharp claws about to strike, our boy plans to use Young's powers. Out of nowhere, the attacker glitches out. His buddy tells him to stop fooling around, but then the vagrant suddenly snaps every bone in his body and crumples to the floor. Our guy powers up, leaving the other vagrant in shock. But our hero knows this one won't play nice, even with powers, because he's super fast. The vagrant charges and our boy grabs his leg, blocking him, and then lands a hard hit right on his head, sending him crashing down. It feels like he's gliding, and he turns to the last vagrant, daring him to take a shot. They're trying to figure out how Haseon's powers really work. He can pull people in and use their abilities at the same time, which is exactly why Amugi wants him. While the vagrant attacks, we dash into Jang's house, where Baeom is laying into the sassy vagrant without holding back. Jang jumps in, throws a rock at Baldy, and sends him flying. The attackers are starting to sweat. The healer girl gives Baldy a boost, and he suddenly looms over Baeom and Jang. She tells him to take out Jang first. Back with our main guy, he's playing it smart until he sees an opening and starts whacking the vagrant, making him look foolish. But Haseon's getting worn out quickly. The vagrant takes notice and hits hard, landing some serious damage. He comes from behind and wraps chains around Haseon. When our hero drops helplessly, the vagrant slams his claw beside him and asks if taking him out now will make the stolen powers come out to play. The boss tells him to back off, but the vagrant claims he's done with Imugi. The boss tells him to stop with the drama, but the vagrant pulls out his weapon, announcing his rebellion. Meanwhile, back at home, Baldy's gone wild but gets quickly humbled by a team combo. The healer calls him a trash fighter and tries to buff him again. Baeom scoops her up mid-spell and tells her that even a vagrant can't survive a beheading. She's shocked, but her moment's cut short because she's already out of the game. Back to our hero. The vagrant attackers start brawling with each other. The boss gathers power for a punch to put his junior in his place, but the rebel dodges mid-air. Another punch comes in and knocks him down. The boss reminds him that he made his choice and turns his attention to our main guy. Suddenly, power surges into him and freezes him in place. The rebel vagrant has used a power just like Young's. Then he strolls over to our hero, who's lying there like he's on a break from his main character duties. He grabs Haseon's hair and claims he's his new partner, warning that if he tries anything smart, he'll be picking his tendons off the floor. Out of nowhere, a huge monstrous hand comes down and just snaps the vagrant's neck. Back at Jang's place, Baeom and Jang are totally shocked by this surprise attack in the middle of the night. Baeom asks about Haseon, and the old man thinks they should check on him but believes he's doing fine. Then dark energy starts leaking out of the dead vagrants. The old man can't wrap his head around the fact that Haseon is absorbing it, wondering what's happening outside. Outside, the rebel vagrant gets squashed by the boss's hit. He can't believe his skill didn't work against the boss. The boss, full of demonic energy, laughs at how pathetic the rebel's earlier skills were compared to his true power. He grabs the rebel by the face, and the vagrant is shaking in fear. Once he kills him, all that dark energy gets sucked right into our hero. The boss is shocked. Energy starts swirling around our hero like a tornado, and he begins to transform into a vagrant. The boss yells if there's more energy to suck up, but our hero just stares him down, fearless. His body begins to heal, and his fists turn to iron. He wonders where these new powers are coming from. The boss, now annoyed and worried, sees our hero roar and charge at him mid-attack. Meanwhile, Biome and Jang are running toward our boy, hoping he's okay. But then the clash ends badly, leaving our hero down for the count. The boss gives him props for managing to do some damage. Our hero writhes in pain as the boss grabs him, lecturing that vagrants run on a whole different energy level. He tells him to stop struggling and give up, reminding him Amugi is waiting. Hearing about Amugi gets our boy fired up, and he roars while grabbing the boss's arm. The boss snaps, claiming that Haseon is still weak even at full power. Looking aside, he sees daggers floating in the air aimed right at him. Now the boss is begging our hero to knock it off. The daggers hit, piercing him, but he still manages to slam them away with a powerful burst. He boasts about being invincible and tells our hero to quit resisting. Our boy is also building up aura. He snatches a dagger and puts all his energy into a single strike, landing some serious damage. But the boss isn't done yet. He lashes out with chains that surprisingly hit nothing. Out of nowhere, our hero is in the boss's face and lands a massive blow that shatters it. Stepping on him, our hero keeps the dagger buried and starts punching with sheer force. Blood flies everywhere as he relentlessly beats down the boss, his fingers almost breaking but saved by insane regeneration. The crafty boss laughs, daring our hero to think this is the end. But as our hero realizes he's in control, he slams the boss's head with a crackling force. He screams for him to die and keeps pounding away. Biome and Jang are frozen right behind him, and Biome asks the old man who this kid really is. The boss's head is practically a puddle now, and Haseon's face is covered in blood. Even Biome is starting to get scared of our hero. The scene switches to Doc chilling in the slums, leaning against the wall and thinking about what Haseon said about family and the people he's supposed to protect. Suddenly, the door to his place swings open, and a guy tells him someone's outside waiting. When Doc checks it out, he gets hit with bad news. Our supervillain Imugi shows up and casually asks where Haseon is. Doc confidently says he has no idea. He can't go after him because he's hurt. Imugi cools down and asks one more thing. Why is he rounding up all the vagrants here? Doc looks worried and says they're just lost souls with no direction. Imugi smirks and says that's exactly the problem. Each vagrant needs a job that matches their powers. Doc doesn't get what he's on about. Imugi, being all cocky, says he's taking them all and giving them something worthwhile to do. Doc realizes his situation is pretty grim. Then a bunch of goofy vagrants show up, making it easy for Imugi to swoop in. Doc pleads with Imugi to back off. Imugi reassures him that they won't hurt anyone, just take them to a lab for some special treatment. Blowing up, Doc calls Imugi a bastard and charges at him. Shuni sees this and gets ready to back Doc up, but Imugi holds her off, saying Doc will be his warm-up. Doc throws a powerful hit, but Imugi dodges it effortlessly. He even tells Doc that Haseon's off on a southern island where her mom is buried. Doc realizes Imugi's just messing with him. Imugi, acting all cocky, doubts Doc's strength, saying he's overestimating him. After blocking a blow, he adds that Doc won't catch Biome with that kind of weak sauce. Imugi then supercharges Doc's weapon, giving him a shock of electricity. Doc's crew flips out and breaks free to save him. Imugi pulls off his gloves, and Doc knows things are about to get real ugly, so he yells at his crew to stop. Unfortunately, the innocent vagrants get zapped right away, and Imugi seems pleased as they're burned to ash. Doc tears up with regret, feeling helpless as he watches. Imugi sarcastically expresses sorrow for his test subjects getting fired because of Doc's screw-up. But now Doc is filled with rage. He swears he won't lose his family again, and promises to make Imugi cry blood for what he's done. Doc powers up and Imugi's eyes widen at his new look. Doc sprouts a horn and goes into a berserk mode, but Imugi doesn't care. He drops a brutal line while taking a hit, saying Doc never really had a family. He's just another vagrant, tossed aside like trash. Then he lifts his fist, ready to hit back like it's no big deal. We flash back to Doc's past, where a bandit asks about their plan. Doc tells them to hang tight and casually suggests splitting the loot, acting like he's doing them a big favor. One guy can't believe he's actually giving away that precious grain, and they all start thanking him like he's some kind of hero. But the next thing they know, they're hanging from a tree, begging him to take everything if it means they can live. Later on, Doc's sitting at a table, feasting with them as if nothing ever happened. They call him Chief and want to know what's next after sharing a meal. Doc shrugs and says they'll just rob those filthy nobles again because they always have money. Fast forward a bit, and Doc's trying to take out Imugi, but he suddenly remembers he doesn't want anything anymore. Everyone knows who he is now, and with his crew, he's ripping off the bad guys and keeping it all for himself. We go back again, and it looks like a day full of tragedy. Their whole area is burning down. Enemies and every little villain who hates them rush in, weapons swinging everywhere. Doke is on fire and yells out Mokwa, that's his wife. He claims he'll carve a path for them, and tells everyone to follow, but then he sees his guy Mihoding begging for help. In desperation, Mihoding asks Doke what any of this means. He tells Doke to get out of there. Doke finds Mokwa, but she's hurt really badly. In a panic, he calls her name, and then he notices shells falling right towards them. He doesn't run, instead he jumps in front of her to shield her. The troops storm into the flames to make sure everyone burns, but Doc takes control and walks out swinging, not leaving a single person unscathed since they took everything from him. As he spots his fallen friends, his rage skyrockets, and he hurls the attackers back into the flames to wipe out any trace of them. But not everything is lost, his wife is still alive. He asks if she's hungry, and she says she's fine, just can't feel her legs. For a moment Doc freezes, and then reassures her he'll be her legs for life. Meanwhile, the enemy chief lurking behind all this chaos is still alive, grinning smugly at the burning scene. A lot of time passes, and winter rolls in. Doc keeps moving, hoping to finally find a place that feels like home. He watches planes zooming through the sky and realizes humans have gotten way stronger than any vagrant he ever met. Eventually, Mokwa tells him to take a break. Doc insists they need to find shelter before the snow gets them. Mokwa says her youth feels like a fading dream. She's aging fast, while Doc looks exactly the same. He reassures her she's still the same as when they first met. He wonders if he's turning into a ghost, and she says no way a ghost shares grain with starving folks. Only a deity does that. She tells him to keep living and looking after everyone, saying her life gets interesting just because she met him. Then suddenly Mokwa stops talking and moving. Doc realizes she's gone and breaks down. He promises to wake her up once they get going again, but that moment never comes. Now back in time, he swears he'll never lose his family again. Imugi shoots a blast of lightning straight into Doc's chest. Time pauses as they stare at each other, chaos swirling in their heads. Then Doc drops. Imugi tells Shinny that Doc might still be useful and she should take him. Shinny asks what to do about the village, and Imugi grins, telling her to just burn it. After it's done, Imugi stands among the ruins with a smile, watching it all go up in flames. On Baekwa Island, Miho shows up and confidently says that their target is definitely around. He catches some sounds and looks closer, realizing what he's actually seeing. A long-haired, muscular guy who moves with a crazy amount of power. Miho thinks that energy is unreal. He's staring at Jang, the Korean god of brawl, the top vagrant out there. Jang flashes his strength and Miho is convinced it's Beidbul. Jang takes out his earbuds saying he loves that part of the song. Behind him, the intel commander asks Miho if that hyped-up guy really is Biome. Miho responds that he's absolutely sure. Just then, the log underneath Jang shifts and reveals their hiding spot, asking who they think they are. Meanwhile, in Haseon's lab, something intense is happening. Doke is strapped into a vessel and hooked up to a drug. Haseon is excited, gushing about how great this is. It's been ages since she dealt with a specimen like this. Shiny starts realizing that Haseon has gone a bit off the deep end. Haseon mentions she needs to keep things under control because if the subject goes wild, it could spell disaster. Shiny tells her to reach out if things go sideways. Haseon appreciates that and shares how her team failed to capture Haseon. Shiny processes this and acknowledges that she just learned about it recently. Still, she warns her to be cautious since Imugi will take care of it himself. Haseon laughs, apologizing for her eagerness, and says she can't wait to try out a bunch of ideas once she gets her hands on that kid. Back on Baekwa Island, Miho tries to calm Jang down, insisting he's not an enemy. Jang fires back, saying they were spying just days ago, and now they're out in the open. Miho is confused, so Jang goes quiet for a second, then lunges at him. Miho dodges and smirks, impressed. Jang tells him to get ready for round 2. He strikes again, but Miho avoids every attempt. Jang thinks it's cool that the kid's pretty good, and jokes that he looks like a bunny rabbit. Miho insists they need to talk since things are way too risky. Jang brushes him off, claiming he doesn't chat with enemies. Then he uses his strength to knock over the log Miho's on. Jang gets mad and decides to pull down all the logs, shoving them with all his might while yelling for Miho to choke on them. Realizing he can't stop Jang, Miho bolts. Jang laughs, believing it's pointless to run. Miho notices he's starting to really tick Jang off and responds by attacking with fire. Jang is taken aback and shouts that the kid has fire, letting it hit his arms. Miho insists it's not the time for a brawl, and suddenly Jang gets blinded by the light and drops to his knees. Miho encircles him with flames and doesn't douse them. Jang opens his eyes, sees the fire below him, and starts jumping around. Miho asks if they can talk now. Biome hears the commotion and comes over, asking who Miho is. Jang tells Biome he's just arrived, and Miho's stunned to finally see the real Biome. Jang claims Miho tried to sneak an attack while he was zoned out. Miho is totally baffled by that. Biome shows his claws, asking if Miho wants to die, saying he could end things in one hit. Miho grins and brings up the Yacha gang. Right then, our hero drops a bombshell about them being the same crew that had Young kill her friend Seojin. Everyone freezes, shocked. Miho asks Haseon if he knows the Yacha clan is after him. Biome tells Miho to explain. Miho says as vagrants have been disappearing one by one, he's been wandering around trying to track them down. Plenty of his friends are missing, and there are others eyeing a power grab for this land. Behind it all are people hiding as chaebols or gang members, but they're all puppets of a vagrant with insane power, Imugi. Our hero goes still at hearing that old enemy's name. When they get to Jang's place, the old man tells Miho that Biome is the final obstacle in Imugi's way. Miho thinks it's crazy how Imugi sees Biome as just this last wall before his big dream is within reach. Inside, Biome's soaking up all the attention, and Miho can't figure out how that guy got so strong. Jang adds that Haseon is actually the missing piece of the whole situation. Haseon says once Imugi gets his absorption ability, he'll take out Biome without even thinking twice. Jang explains that if Imugi gains Biome's power, no one will stand a chance against him. Miho pipes up and says he's not backing down this time. No matter what happens, even if it means facing death, he'll fight till the end. Jang notices how much Haseon has changed since the day she lost her mom. But even then, he tells her that Imugi is already stronger than anyone there. Haseon asks if that's supposed to include Biome. Just then, both Biome and Miho sense something rushing at them. Out of nowhere, these strange creatures attack. Jang grumbles, annoyed that they just finished fixing the house. The guys pull out their claws and charge after the monsters, and Shinny shows up, acting all tough like she can handle it by herself. Miho can't believe she came alone. Then another voice cuts in. It's Imugi. He's grinning, calling them idiots. To him, the night is perfect for rewriting history. Haseon sees Imugi and instantly realizes he's the guy who caused her mom's death. Imugi brushes past her and says they've got a special gift for them. When Mugiho sees the creatures, it hits him hard. Those are actually his old friends, and they've been turned into Imugi's lab rats. Mugiho calls out to Black Tiger, but Black Tiger snaps back at him. Imugi just laughs and unleashes a wave of energy, treating the whole thing like a sweet reunion. The blast obliterates Mugiho's friend right in front of him, and he's left frozen in shock. Imugi mocks him, asking for his friend's name. While the other minions rush Miho, the place fills up with these twisted creatures, and they overwhelm him fast. But Biome jumps in with sharp, clean strikes, cutting through the minions. Jang dives in too, with his statue smashing enemies left and right. Miho charges in as well, punching and throwing strikes fueled by rage. Watching Miho fight tirelessly, Imugi grins and even gives him props for his bravery. But when Miho tries to absorb the minions' power, nothing happens. Turns out Haseon, who made these test subjects, made sure Haseon couldn't absorb them at all. Imugi, wanting to raise the stakes, calls out the next monster. He's excited because he finally knows what's coming next. Then the same serpent monster shows up. As soon as Imugi tells it to go, it shoots its snakes at Miho, biting him instantly. The monster is pumped about it, saying he's been itching to kill Haseon, but Imugi promised him something better if he let her live. Right then, Imugi blasts the serpent monster, claiming he just wants to give it a new life. The blast turns the creature to ashes right in front of Miho. The vagrant dies in the most pathetic way, and all that energy gets sucked right into our hero. Pain rips through him as the poison spreads. He feels every toxin burning inside him. Jang and Biome are freaking out, while Imugi watches with pure joy. Imugi tells Shinny to grab Haseon, and she doesn't even hesitate before going for it. Meanwhile, Miho is sitting there feeling sorry for himself, apologizing to his dead friend for letting him down. The old Jang yells at Miho to snap out of it and protect Haseon. Finally, Miho gets his act together and vows that those guys will regret what they've done. Shinny leaps at Miho, but he throws up his Miho art in a fiery wall just in time. She calls him a damn firefox and warns him that his little tricks won't fly with her. And just like that, the fight breaks out between Miho and Shinny. Miho's heated, ready to torch her and all of her friends. While that's going down, Jang grabs Haseon and hightails it out of there. Shinny laughs, saying Miho looks pretty sexy when he's angry. Miho throws a question at her about how she can be okay with her friends dying. Shinny just smirks back, saying she doesn't care since in this world only the strong survive. Miho notices she's gone from trying to be a tough boxer to just plain crazy. He mocks her, saying it's her last chance to use her powers, and she better enjoy it while she can, and she fires back by calling him Baby Fox. This is where things really kick off. She hurls a heavy punch, and Miho barely blocks it, stunned by the sheer power behind it. Shinny doesn't hold back. She follows up with a nasty leg slam, and Miho finds himself stuck defending non-stop, getting knocked around. Shinny is cackling like a total maniac. She swings again, knocking Miho off balance, and when he drops, she jumps right on him for another hit. Annoyed and out of breath, Miho realizes he can't just keep running. It's time to fight back. He powers up, his eyes glowing red, and his whole demeanor shifts to something wild. He's clearly using everything he's got left. With a laugh, he pulls out the Miho art called Howling Amber Blade, transforming into something more beast than human. He roars that he'll burn everything in his path. He shoots upward, daggers forming in his hands as a shockwave erupts. Shinny stumbles back, furious and surprised, but it's too late. Miho is all over her with those daggers, hitting her from every angle. She's furious now, but still taking some hits. Miho keeps the heat on, but she kicks at his face. He's too quick, ducking under it and striking back. They face off again, both determined. Miho charges in again, but this time, Shini grabs his arm. He struggles against her grip, but it feels like steel. She laughs, pleased she finally has him, and dares him to escape. Miho challenges her to try, but she slams her forehead into him, throwing him to the ground. She tells him to get back up, clearly eager to see what else he's got. Running low on energy and covered in blood, Miho sees Imugi step in, who can't help but comment on how this feels like déjà vu. Imugi reminisces about the old year of the snake and chuckles smugly. Miho looks worried as Imugi brings up a blood-soaked limping fox from 500 years ago that Miho can't believe he remembers. He recalls the monster hunt that wrecked the city, led by none other than Imugi. Imugi says it took them ages to move past that. Miho asks what Imugi got out of it. Imugi explains that humans brought shame upon their kind, so the retaliation was deserved. Miho shoots back, calling that nonsense and pointing out how many friends were lost because of it. Imugi argues that living alongside humans is pointless if they outlive them by thousands of years. Furious and crackling with energy, Miho yells that if he can't kill Imugi tonight, nothing else matters. Using the art of Kamiho, he goes berserk and unleashes his ultimate move, Heavenly Fox Advent. His body lights up as he prepares to take down Imugi. Sheni tries to step in but is thrown aside. Facing the ramped-up Miho, Imugi stays cool, calling it lovely. The two get ready to battle as the monster hunt kicks off for real. Miho yells that he's gonna get revenge for his friends, even if it means he has to go down today. Imugi starts cracking up, saying he hasn't seen such a big display of loyalty in ages. Miho tries to make a move, but nothing happens. Imugi tells him it's over, he controls the wind and rain, and there's no way Miho can beat him with fire. Then Shini jumps in and takes Miho down with one hit. Imugi asks if Miho has any final words. Out of nowhere, Dang shows up behind Imugi, shouting for him to stop. Meanwhile, Shini flies up behind Jang, trash-talking him like he's useless. When Jang turns to see the mess he got into, Imugi zaps him with lightning, and Jang goes down screaming in pain. Imugi laughs and tells Jang to crawl back into his corner, just like when he messed up Haseon's mom and stomped on Jang's skull. He plans to finish Jang off and take Haseon for himself. Jang can only curse back, but Imugi gets distracted and notices Bingham is already charging at him. Bingham lands a punch right on Imugi's face. Suddenly Shini yells at Bingham, claiming she's his real rival, not Imugi. Bingham isn't having it. He takes her out with a super fast blow, saying he doesn't have time to deal with her too. He slams her down, wrecking her face like it's nothing. Now Bingham grabs Shini's horn, and Imugi's shocked by his power. Imugi throws the horn back at her, but then he breaks into wild laughter for some reason. The next moment he realizes Biome is already on him again. Biome keeps throwing punches, asking if Imugi still finds any of this funny, or if he thinks it's just some game. He sneaks behind Imugi and slashes his back with razor-sharp claws. Imugi can't believe how fast Biome is moving. No time to think though, because Biome's attacking again. Imugi shoots out lightning, creating a huge explosion. For a second, Imugi thinks he's finally hurt him, but that grin disappears the instant he senses Biome right behind him. Before he can even react, a claw slices through his ear and rips right into him. Blood streams down Imugi's face as Biome, with steely determination in his eyes, declares he might finally shut Imugi up. But Imugi just laughs, saying that even after being locked away for so long, Biome is still scary. Biome wonders if he's met Imugi before. Imugi, covered in blood and still chuckling, tells him to look closer and remember. Biome starts piecing it together that Imugi used to be the Bear Clan's guardian. Imugi presses him to make sure he remembers. Biome confirms that he does, adding that Imugi was useless back then too. Suddenly a bright pulse appears in front of Biome. Imugi instantly gets restored as dark energy explodes from him. He reminisces about how Biome was once seen as the strongest but still lost, leaving only stories behind. Imugi rises into the air, enveloped in darkness. The hole Biome punched in him seals up like it was never there. Massive tentacles and serpents burst out from Imugi's transformed body, and he laughs down at Biome. Imugi talks about how Biome slept for 5,000 years and crushed anyone who dared to get in his way. Biome just smirks, calling it a cute trick. That sets Imugi off, and he releases his devil serpents. Biome tries to tear them apart, but they wrap tightly around his arms. Imugi mocks him, asking what he thinks he can do with just his claws. More monstrous serpents appear, and start tearing into Biome, biting his skin. Biome is annoyed, calling them worthless strings. Imugi taunts him, questioning if brute strength can really solve everything, especially now. He raises his hand, and even more monsters pop out of the ground. Now Biome actually looks worried. Imugi smirks, not realizing Biome has already handled the serpents, but Biome charges at him anyway. They clash, power against power. Just as they get close, Imugi unleashes another wave of serpents. Biome ducks into a defensive stance, but he still gets hit. He mutters that in a fight between a dragon and a tiger, the one who can't fly is bound to lose. Imugi lashes out with serpents and sweat drips down Biome's face. Imugi yells, questioning how Biome could ever be better than him. Biome's eyes flicker yellow, and Imugi screams for him to die. Lightning strikes, nearly overwhelming him. Biome hits the ground but then gets lifted by a serpent around his neck. Imugi asks why she chose such a mediocre pawn, laughing coldly and calling Biome a loser with an inferiority complex. Biome responds by crushing the serpents. Imugi totally loses it, demanding to know what that was all about. He tightens the coil, vowing to make Biome beg for death before he slams him into the ground with brutal force. Pain erupts in Biome's body. Imugi pummels him non-stop, shouting for him to give up. More serpents dig into Biome's flesh. Even Biome can feel himself fading. Imugi slams him into the earth again, glaring down with vicious eyes. He loosens the serpents and sends one for Biome's throat, convinced he's already won. He calls it Biome's punishment, and summons thunder once more. Lightning crashes down, creating a huge explosion. Imugi laughs, insisting that all that talk was pointless, and pulls the serpents back as smoke rises. In the haze, Imugi is confused about what's happening until suddenly, one serpent gets ripped apart. He snaps back to reality, demanding to know where Biome is. Then out of the smoke, Biome grabs Imugi's arm with a grip so tight he can't move. Biome stands right in front of him, eyes pitch black with a golden glow, and calls Imugi a slippery fish pretending to be a dragon. Imugi gets angry, but it's too late. Biome says he'll show him what a tiger can do. He strikes with incredible force, sending Imugi flying like a rag doll. Before Imugi even lands, Biome is right on him again, delivering a crushing blow that buries Imugi in the ground. He collapses like a puppet with its strings cut, blood dripping from his mouth, but he still laughs, claiming he's been fighting non-stop. Biome charges again, and Imugi remembers how Biome was sealed away for 5,000 years and still won't go down. He sees raw power in Biome's eyes as his strikes hit like a tiger's roar, freezing Imugi in place. Imugi's expression tightens, and a massive blast sends Biome flying backward. He strides through the dust cloud, but then something strange hits him, throwing him off balance. It feels like something is rushing through the air. He raises his guard. As the smoke clears, Imugi stands tall, motioning for Biome to come closer. His eyes are darker and deadlier than before. He opens a third eye, showing his final form. In a cold, threatening voice, he declares that Biome will die here. Biome realizes Imugi has transformed into an Acacian, a corrupted vagrant that's turned into a demon of destruction. The three-eyed Imugi stalks towards Biome, looking like he's ready to wreak havoc. Biome backpedals, grimacing at that new eye on Imugi's forehead. Old Jang instantly knows they're in serious trouble. He remembers what our boy's mom said. Mugi wanted to be a dragon but messed up and turned into an Action instead. When he asks what that means, she explains it's a bunch of corrupted forces, basically a mix of evil, and the only option left for someone lost in the abyss. Old Jang realizes she was right. He tells Bai to grab Haseon and bail, but Bai won't have it. Jang insists it's too risky to stay, but Baim is dead set on taking down Imugi tonight. In a split second, Baim appears right behind Imugi. The speed is insane. Just as Baim reaches out, a tentacle lashes out and grabs his arm before Imugi even registers it. The grip is fierce, and Baim feels the pain, confused about where all this pressure is coming from. Imugi lifts him off the ground, dragging him down with those tentacles. With a smirk, he fires pitch-black lightning straight at Biome. The whole gang shouts for Biome, but Imugi barely pays them any mind. He's already won. Suddenly, Biome is in the air above and behind Imugi. They clash hard, trading blows. Biome swings, but Imugi blocks him. Dark arms grab onto him mid-attack, fueling his anger. Imugi slams him back, but Biome breaks free and rips away the tentacles. In no time, they're trading strikes while spinning through the air. Old Jang sees Imugi has become pure evil, while Beast looks like he's about to drop. Just then Misho wakes up and can't believe it's really Imugi. The devil snakes clash with the trigger claws, and the fight feels intense. Biome tries to gain an edge by going higher in the air, while Imugi, calm and smirking, flicks his wrist, hurling dark energy and lightning down. Biome's crazy speed lets him dodge this time. Using his third eye energy, Imugi summons huge devil serpents that tear through the ground and swarm Biome. He fights back but gets overpowered, wrapping tightly around him and crushing him. Biome can feel every bone under pressure, but it's not enough to take him down. Imugi channels lightning into his arm and fires a lethal blast right at Biome, setting him on fire. Biome screams in pain, nearly buried and crushed. Haseon's eyes go wide as he calls for Biome. Through the smoke, Biome realizes he's lost so much blood he can barely move. Imugi hovers above him, mocking his earlier bravado, claiming he's not the Imugi Biome once knew. He raises his arm to summon red lightning. The clouds crackle with energy, ready to strike, and this time, Imugi looks like he's about to finish Biome off for good, unleashing all that energy. Out of nowhere, Old Jang leaps in, tossing wooden statues into the air to block the attack. He yells for Biome to pull it together, saying he's bought him a bit of time. Biome can barely get himself to move. Jang is running on fumes, pleading for Biome to get back up. Meanwhile, Imugi cranks the lightning to max, pouring every bit of energy into it. Old Jang stands his ground, determined not to let his loved ones go down. Haseon remembers he's a hero and coils chains to attack Imugi. Jang tries to stop him, but it's too late. Imugi turns his attention towards Jang. In that moment, Byum finally rises, fully powered up and ready for round 2. Jang's yelling for Byum to help Haseon, but Byum isn't falling for it. Imugi changes into an Ikshin. Meanwhile, our hero's trying to choke Imugi out, holding him down for Byum to strike. Imugi fires off an energy blast, but our guy hangs on and yells at Byum to move it. Finally, Byum lets out a massive roar, but old Jang is shocked. Byum isn't rushing in to save Haseon. He's aiming to take out Imugi. Imugi whips his tentacles around, slamming both Jang and Byum to the ground, but Jang isn't backing down. Imugi gathers up another lightning spell, crazy confident he'll finish them all off in one hit. The lightning strikes and everything in its way gets wrecked. Smoke fills the area, and Jang gets hit hard, collapsing and zoning out. Imugi smirks for a second, but Haseon is still hanging on, and Byum's ready with his claws. It's a wild last stand. Our hero shouts for Byum to go for it, but those annoying tentacles have him locked down again. Byum struggles to break free. Nothing is ever easy, but then out of nowhere, he tears through those tentacles and charges like a dark tiger going straight for Imugi. Amid all this chaos, our guy's still hanging on to Imugi like a little monkey. Imugi finally loses it, unleashing his full power, making it impossible for our hero to hold on. The energy wave flings him away, and as he falls, he just hopes Byum finishes Imugi off for good. Byum doesn't hesitate. He leaps in and slashes at Imugi. Imugi barely gets a defense up, but Byum pushes through and digs into him. Blood spills from Imugi's throat as he desperately tries to stop it. He's lost on how Byum suddenly powered up. He collapses with Byum looming over him like a nightmare. The tiger charges again, and Imugi is just trying to hold himself together. Feeling a death blow coming, he mutters that he didn't want to go out like this. In the final moment, Byum's about to smash him, but out of nowhere, Imugi explodes upward with one last surge. Smoke rises, and both beasts are still standing, but Imugi's stamina is shot, while Byum's still got plenty of power left to put him down for good. Suddenly Doc shows up with his bat, ready to smack Byum into next week. Byum's furious that Doc's suddenly on the Yacha gang's side, but Doke doesn't care. He just swings and knocks Byum out cold. Shiny grabs Imugi while Doke looks at our unconscious hero. He hesitates for a moment thinking, then scoops him up and carries him off. A little while later, Shiny bursts into the lab. All worried about Imugi, Haseon, acting casual, says Imugi just has some minor injuries, and a lord like him doesn't break that easily. Shiny, already irritated, snaps back asking if they really have to do the transplant right now. Can't they just wait until Imugi wakes up? Haseon reminds her that Imugi's lifelong dream is to take Haseon's power and be reborn as something totally unique. That just ticks Shiny off even more, and she yells that she's not against the transplant, just that they can wait until Imugi is conscious. Haseon hits back, saying she clearly doesn't trust him. He goes on about how Imugi shouldn't let something so minor bother him. Then he adds that if Imugi can't push through this, maybe his vessel was never meant to be. Finally, Shiny snaps and grabs Haseon by the neck. Haseon calmly warns her that the transplant's already underway, and if she hurts him, it'll affect Imugi too. He starts bragging about how he's creating the strongest superhuman ever, which leaves Shiny stunned. She demands he stop everything right now. Haseon's practically ecstatic, obsessed with the idea that he's making this powerful being right in front of her. Shiny desperately calls out to Imugi to wake up and stop the grafting, but he can't hear her. Though she wants to smash Haseon in the face, she knows it'll just make things worse. Haseon shouts that she doesn't understand anything. At that moment, Haseon finally snaps back to consciousness. He's confused about where he is and what kind of nightmare this is. Spotting Imugi, he immediately wants to break free and take him down. Shuni and Haseon see he's awake, and Haseon gets this crazy look in his eyes, like he just won the lottery. The machine speeds up, and Haseon, bewildered, demands they turn it off right now. He squeezes his eyes shut and suddenly everything goes silent. But when he opens them again, he finds himself in some strange room, hands tied up. Haseon is thrilled that Haseon is all alone. He admits he's always wanted to see Haseon in person. Our hero starts yelling, wanting to know who this creep is and what's going on. Haseon just laughs and tells him not to die yet, or he'll mess up the fun. Doc walks in, and Haseon realizes this is the same scumbag he knows, but Doc just walks past, ignoring him entirely as Haseon calls out.
A sharp-featured man wears a confident grin, clearly amused by the situation, while another man behind him chuckles with a mocking smile, showing they feel completely in control. In front of them, a heavy-set blonde boy looks nervous and confused, sweating as he takes in his surroundings, while a short-haired girl beside him stays alert but tense. The blonde boy asks where they are and who these people are, clearly not understanding what's happening or why they're surrounded. Instead of answering, the men laugh at his question, one of them leaning forward mockingly as the group tightens around them, making it clear they have no intention of explaining anything. A frightened boy looks around in panic, his eyes wide as he demands to know where someone has gone, clearly realizing something is wrong. One of the men locks onto him with a cold stare, staying silent as he studies the boy's reaction, already sizing him up. Another man steps closer with a cruel smile, openly stating that they are going to enjoy dealing with him, making their intentions clear. Nearby, a muscular man watches calmly with folded focus, showing no urgency to stop what's about to happen as the tension fully settles in. The muscular man watches with mild curiosity, letting out a low reaction as he calmly observes the situation unfolding. Suddenly, his expression sharpens when he senses movement, his eyes narrowing as something unexpected catches his attention. One of the attackers lashes out in anger, striking violently while shouting in frustration, releasing his pent-up rage through brute force. The blow sends the victim crashing hard to the ground, the impact echoing through the room as the attack lands cleanly. The aggressive man smirks as he approaches, saying he is just as curious, while admitting he has been wanting an excuse to beat someone up. On the ground, the injured boy struggles to breathe and weakly asks what they are all doing there, clearly shaken by the attack. Looking down at him, one of the men mockingly welcomes him, treating the situation like an introduction rather than an assault. Stepping forward, the leader declares that the boy is now part of Class 13, as the group closes in and the tension fully settles. Lying on the floor, the boy clenches his teeth in confusion and repeats the name in disbelief, clearly not understanding what Class 13 even means. Still trying to process everything, he asks why this place is called a school and what they are supposed to be learning there. One of the men grins coldly and answers that they do learn a few things, using a cruel example to make his point clear. Leaning closer with a mocking chuckle, he adds that there is no graduation here, making it clear that once you enter, there is no escape. One of the men explains that someone named Huachuo is the one truly learning, while everyone else here is treated as nothing more than test subjects. He describes their lives as lab rats locked behind iron bars, forced to keep going until they eventually die without any escape. As the boy struggles to stand, another man steps forward and bluntly states that Class 13 is the lowest rank among them all, setting their position clearly. With a smug grin, the leader cuts the talk short and tells the boy to fall in line and get along, making it clear resistance is pointless. One of the men chuckles and calls out to the girl named Lita, casually placing a hand on her shoulder and telling her to check the boy. The boy reacts in shock, his eyes widening as he realizes something unexpected is happening in front of him. Lita's eyes suddenly glow with an unnatural blue light, releasing a strange surge that fills the space with pressure. The boy jolts and twitches in alarm, confused and unsettled as he wonders what she is doing to him. Lita's glowing eye intensifies as a strange force surges outward, signaling that her ability is fully activating. The boy winces in pain and discomfort, his body reacting violently as nausea and dizziness overwhelm him. While maintaining control, Lita evaluates him calmly, noting his mental resistance and physical flexibility as the scan continues. Watching the results with interest, another observer reacts with mild surprise, clearly intrigued by what Lita has discovered. Lita continues her scan and lists multiple abilities one after another, including weapon summoning, telekinesis, regeneration, and body hardening, forcing the others to stop and listen. Struggling to breathe, the boy panics internally, realizing she is somehow reading his powers while his body still hasn't recovered. One of the men reacts in disbelief, questioning how someone could possess so many abilities at once. The leader glances at Lita with interest and asks if she is certain about her assessment, clearly starting to see the boy in a new light. Lita pauses mid-scan as the others react in disbelief, expecting even more abilities to be revealed. Her glowing eye flickers briefly before she goes silent, signaling the scan has reached its limit. She calmly states that she misread earlier and confirms there are no additional abilities beyond what she already listed. Watching this unfold, the leader grins with clear interest, remarking that the boy might actually be useful after all. One of the men laughs it off, mocking Tabasa, while complaining that he keeps getting pushed aside during the discussion. Growing impatient, he grabs the boy by the collar and demands to know who he really is. Another man snarls in irritation as the tension spikes, clearly annoyed by how things are unfolding. The boy finally shouts back, insisting he needs to see Huachuo and arguing there is no reason for him to be used for experiments. The boy is slammed down hard, crying out as his body hits the floor with force. Nearby, the muscular man stiffens slightly while Lita watches from behind, sensing the situation escalating. The attacker snarls that no one escapes this place and claims the boy is nothing special, asserting his dominance. Enraged, he charges in and beats the boy again, accusing him of acting superior as the blows land one after another. The attacker mocks the boy, asking if he is scared, but suddenly freezes as something shifts in the air. Nearby debris and an overturned desk loom in the background, emphasizing the heavy tension filling the room. Despite the pain, the boy slowly forces himself back up and challenges the attacker, questioning if he really thinks he is stronger. Stunned by the response, the attacker yells in rage, clearly shocked that the boy still has the nerve to talk back. As the tension peaks, the boy's eyes suddenly glow, chains snapping into place around his arms as his power activates without warning. In a burst of speed, he lunges forward, dragging the chains through the air and shocking everyone who witnesses the sudden counterattack. One of the men screams in rage, realizing too late that the boy has turned the situation around and is striking back. The boy charges past them in a blur, chains whipping forward as his movement leaves the group stunned by his sudden show of strength. As the attacker lunges again, the boy's eyes suddenly glow red, and a violent surge of power erupts, forcing his enemy to recoil in shock. The pressure intensifies as the boy focuses, his gaze locking in while the unseen force tightens, overwhelming the attacker completely. In moments, the tables turn, the attacker is lifted and choked mid-air, realizing too late that he has lost control of the fight. The boy watches coldly as the man collapses, mocked by the others, silently vowing to become stronger after surviving yet another attempt on his life. Bruised and kneeling on the ground, the boy swears silently that everyone who looked down on him will eventually pay for it. Watching him from above, the leader smirks and coldly tells him that whatever fate awaits, he deserves it. Suddenly, a violent surge erupts as the boy's eyes glow red, his rage exploding while he screams Dampier's name and declares his intent to kill. Overwhelmed by the presence invading his mind, he clutches his head and roars for it to get out, barely holding himself together as the power runs wild. A violent surge erupts as power floods the room, the air warping when the attacker's eyes flash with intense energy. In response, the boy's eyes glow sharply, signaling that something dangerous has awakened inside him. The two lock gazes, their powers colliding silently as tension spikes to its peak. In that instant, it becomes clear this is no longer a one-sided beating, but the beginning of a real confrontation. A foot slams down hard, cracking the ground. The sudden impact shows someone stepping forward with force and intent. The man raises his hand near his face, his blue eyes sharp and focused. He reflects on how people who were once bullied often turn into bullies themselves. The opponent's eye widens in shock. Sweat forms as he realizes something is wrong and danger is close. Dark blades rain down from above. One man screams as the attack crashes into him, while another figure stands below, watching the strike land. The man gasps in pain, his face tense and eyes wide. He curses under his breath as he struggles to react. An explosion erupts in front of him. Debris and shards fly as he shouts angrily, trying to assert himself despite being pushed back by the blast. Sharp blades cut through the air at high speed. Their movement is fast and precise, slicing forward without slowing down. The attack rushes past a group standing behind. Wind and pressure sweep through the area as the blades pass, leaving everyone frozen in shock. The group shouts a warning as they notice the attack coming. Fear spreads across their faces as they brace for impact. A muscular man blocks the incoming blades with his arm and weapon. Metal clashes loudly as sparks fly, and he smirks while holding his ground. A close-up shows another man's eyes narrowing. He stays silent, carefully judging the situation in front of him. One person collapses to the floor in pain. The others rush toward him, shouting his name as they try to help him up. The injured man staggers forward, coughing and bleeding. He shouts angrily while struggling to stay on his feet as blood spills onto the floor. Another man turns his head sharply and looks back. Panicked, he calls out to his boss and begs for help. The boss steps forward under the light, his expression calm and unreadable. He pauses for a moment, clearly assessing the situation. A close-up shows the boss's eyes tightening. His gaze hardens, signaling that he has understood what is happening. The attacker smirks as he suddenly moves. His body twists sharply, showing full control and intent to strike. The target's eyes widen in shock. He tries to react, shouting for someone to stop it as the force rushes toward him. A violent impact slams him into the ground. The blow crashes down with explosive force, shaking the area. He lies broken and coughing, blood spilling from his mouth. His body trembles as he struggles to breathe, completely overwhelmed. The young man pants heavily, sweat running down his face. He looks shaken and struggles to steady his breathing. The injured man cries weakly, barely able to keep his eyes open. He begs his boss for help as his voice trembles. The boss walks closer, stopping in front of him. He looks down calmly while the injured man clings to his leg, sobbing and calling them family. A close-up shows the boss's cold expression. He listens without reacting, his face showing no sympathy as the pleas continue. The boss steps closer and looks down at the injured man. He repeats the word family with a calm, mocking tone while lifting his foot. His foot comes down hard on the man's face. Blood sprays as the impact crushes him into the floor. The body is kicked and thrown across the room. Loud impacts echo as bones crack and the figure slams into the ground. The onlookers freeze in terror. Their faces turn pale as they watch the brutal scene unfold, unable to move or speak. One man swallows nervously, sweat on his face. He senses something is wrong and stays completely still. Another man's eyes shake with fear. His face tightens as he realizes what the boss is about to do. The boss raises his hand and calmly confirms they are family. Dark red energy gathers around his arm as blood lifts and twists in the air. A floating mass of blood forms above his palm. It spins violently, dripping and pulsing as everyone nearby gasps in shock. The blood mass spins violently in the air above the boss. Red energy pulses as the liquid twists and sharpens under his control. The blood stretches into a thin stream. It begins to drip slowly, glowing as it moves downward. The stream pours straight into the injured man's open mouth. He lies on his back, unable to resist as the blood flows inside. His throat tightens as he swallows again and again. Blood spills around his lips while his body reacts in fear and pain. The young man freezes in shock. Goosebumps rise across his skin as he stares at the scene, unable to move. Someone speaks hesitantly, pointing out that the injured man was supposed to be a friend. The young man's eyes tremble as he hears this. The boss exhales slowly, blood staining his mouth. His breathing is steady, showing no regret or concern. He casually licks the blood from his fingers and asks who that person was. He dismisses the victim as nothing more than wasted space. The boss glances sideways, red energy drifting around him. His expression stays calm as he pauses before speaking. He tells the young man that he will now work for him. The young man shivers, sweat dripping as fear tightens his face. The young man asks what will happen if he refuses. The boss looks back with a cold, unreadable stare. The boss lets out a quiet laugh and casually waves his hand. The gesture makes the threat clear without needing words. The young man's face tightens as a sharp pain cuts across him. Blood spills immediately, and his eye shakes in panic. The boss speaks coldly, making it clear he never asked for an opinion. Blood moves on its own, slicing through the air at his command. Standing tall, the boss declares that he is giving an order. Red energy coils around his hand as the pressure in the room increases. The young man stares in horror as blood gushes uncontrollably from his wound. He realizes resistance is impossible, and that the command is absolute. One of the men steps forward confidently and tells the boss to leave it to him. He cracks his knuckles, ready to act, saying he will make the target understand. Another fighter moves into position beside him. Blood, mist, and pressure swirl lightly as both prepare to engage. The young man watches closely, clenching his teeth. He tries to understand the enemy's ability, but realizes he cannot read it at all. Someone shouts for him to give up already. The group closes in, weapons clicking as they surround him and cut off any escape. One of the attackers smiles and reassures him not to worry. She treats the situation lightly, clearly enjoying his fear. She suddenly lunges forward, calling it a welcome initiation. Her body twists midair as she attacks without hesitation. A sharp flash fills the scene. The young man's eye lights up as he reacts at the last moment, sensing the incoming strike. He bursts into motion, dodging to the side as debris scatters. The attack narrowly misses, leaving everyone stunned by his sudden speed. The young man scans the area in panic. His eyes widen as he realizes the attacker has suddenly vanished. He gasps and stares around, sweat forming as he struggles to track her movement. Without warning, a presence appears behind him. A figure drops down from above with glowing eyes and a sharp grin. She leans in close and asks if he was looking for her. The young man flinches in shock as the danger closes in. A man smirks in satisfaction, clearly pleased with how things are unfolding as he watches the situation calmly. A tall, intimidating man steps forward with confidence and orders Tabasa to back off, asserting control while another figure stands behind him in support. One of the subordinates laughs and tells his boss to go easy, pointing out that it's rare to find someone entertaining enough to mess with. The boss chuckles and agrees, his glowing eyes showing amusement as he decides to enjoy the moment rather than end it quickly. Blood sprays across the scene as the injured man groans, realizing his wounds are worsening instead of stopping. The blood keeps gushing uncontrollably, splattering around him as his body struggles to stay upright. An opponent calmly raises a hand and taunts him, questioning how the pain feels while tightening control over the situation. Without giving him time to recover, the attacker charges forward, pressing the advantage as blood trails through the air. The injured man clutches himself as blood keeps pouring out, realizing he's losing too much strength and might pass out at this rate. His opponent tightens a fist and moves in without hesitation, clearly deciding to finish things before he can recover. In a blur of motion, the man is struck and sent flying through the air, blood scattering as his body is thrown aside. The attacker calmly acknowledges his resistance, praising him for putting up a decent fight while remaining completely in control. The attacker dashes forward with a twisted smile, launching another strike as blood splatters from the impact. Weapons crash against each other as he effortlessly deflects the attack, metal ringing while he stays completely relaxed. Getting close, he mocks his opponent, admitting it's been a long time since he's had this much fun in a fight. The injured man narrowly dodges the follow-up slash, barely escaping as the attack cuts through the air where he stood. The attacker chuckles and praises his opponent, noting how quickly he manages to get back on his feet despite the damage. Excited by the fight, he swings his weapon in a wide arc and brings it down aggressively, enjoying every second of the exchange. The injured man twists his body at the last moment, reacting in shock as the attack narrowly misses him. In the next instant, the blow lands with full force, slamming down brutally as the attacker maintains complete dominance. The injured man crashes and slides across the floor, struggling to regain his footing after the heavy impact. The attacker casually lifts his hand, spinning the blood in the air as if it were completely under his control. Smirking confidently, he mocks his opponent for already being tired, showing no sign of slowing down. With a relaxed wave of his hand, he sends another surge of force forward, keeping relentless pressure on his opponent. A sudden explosion erupts nearby, forcing the injured man to brace himself as the blast shakes the entire area. Breathing heavily, he looks around in shock, confused about what just happened and where the attack came from. A dense mass of blood spins sharply through the air, moving with unnatural speed toward its target. The attack detonates on impact, sending the opponent flying backward in a violent explosion of force. With glowing eyes, the attacker coldly tells his opponent to stay in the corner and think about how he plans to survive from now on. Blood droplets rush toward the injured man as he raises his guard in panic, sensing a lethal attack closing in. The condensed blood detonates at point-blank range, blasting him violently as pain and shock overwhelm his body. A massive explosion fills the area, and when the dust settles, the attacker stands calmly at the center, untouched and dominant. The attacker laughs quietly and casually tosses another blood droplet into the air, treating the fight like a game. He calmly swallows and steadies himself, showing complete composure despite the chaos around him. Falling silent, he stares ahead with a cold, unreadable expression, fully assessing his opponent's condition. Moments later, the injured man is hurled into the wall, crashing hard and sliding down as the dust slowly settles. A voice angrily orders the men to stop hesitating and get back to work, demanding that the injured person be moved immediately. The subordinates respond at once and rush into action, dragging the situation forward without question. The scene shifts to a long, cold corridor where heavy footsteps echo, creating an oppressive and tense atmosphere. A large figure stomps forward through the hallway, each step shaking the ground as something dangerous approaches. The injured man glances sideways in disbelief, still trying to process what just happened and how overwhelming his opponent feels. As he peeks ahead, a chilling thought crosses his mind, questioning whether that man was really responsible for such power. Heavy footsteps draw closer, and the sight ahead makes him realize the attacker's arms have hardened like stone, radiating immense strength. Another man supports him from behind and tells him to conserve his energy, reminding him that he already lost a dangerous amount of blood earlier. Barely conscious, the injured man weakly asks to be put down, unable to resist any longer. He quickly pleads, promising he won't fight back and will leave immediately if released, hoping to survive. The man holding him stays silent, his expression cold and unreadable as he listens without responding. Stepping forward, he reminds him that there's nowhere to run and calmly asks if he even understands where they are. He bluntly explains that they are inside a prison where countless people are locked away and no one has ever escaped. The injured man listens in silence, then calmly answers that he understands the situation despite the odds. As guards search the area, he realizes they are all looking for him, tightening the sense of danger closing in. Even so, he reasons that a place like this must have an entrance somewhere, hinting that escape is still possible. As they walk deeper into the corridor, he admits he's not even sure an exit exists, leaving the question hanging in the air. The other man glances back and says there's only one way to find out, clearly implying they'll have to move forward. He explains that this is Class 13, the lowest level of the prison, where inmates receive the worst treatment, with 12 other classes stacked above it. Hearing that Class 13 lies at the deepest point of the prison, the realization sinks in that they are trapped at the very bottom. He explains that escaping means fighting through every other class, but quickly shuts down the idea, saying the prisoners would try to kill him the moment they meet. He adds that survival would first require dealing with each class leader, since all the classes hate one another and won't let anyone pass freely. Thinking about the blood manipulator, he notes that while the man despises weakness, he won't kill him outright unless he fights back. In the end, he warns that the safest choice is to obey orders, because resisting would only result in having every drop of blood drained away. Horrified, he questions whether he's really expected to submit to such a monster, recalling how the man even killed his own people. Fear grips him as he falls silent, realizing the situation is far worse than he imagined. They come to a sudden stop at their destination, and he nervously asks what this place is. Instead of an answer, he's ordered to stop resisting and follow instructions without asking any questions. Shaken and anxious, he admits that staying around will only anger the blood manipulator, who will eventually force him to fight as well. He confesses his fear openly, knowing he can't win and that resisting will only lead to the same fate as those who already died. Changing the subject, the other man calmly asks for his name, breaking the tense moment. Startled by the question, he hesitates before introducing himself as Yi-Woong, his fears still clear on his face. He checks on Yi-Woong's injured leg and apologizes, explaining that he never meant to hurt him during the chaos. After a brief pause, Yi-Woong says it's fine and confirms that the bleeding has finally stopped. Deciding to leave, the man turns away and tells Yi-Woong to call out if he needs any help. As an afterthought, Yi-Woong nervously warns him not to talk to the people on the other side, clearly afraid of what might happen. As he starts to leave, something catches his attention, making him pause and turn his head in confusion. He repeats the warning in his mind, wondering what Yi-Woong meant by the other side. In the next moment, a powerful presence suddenly drops down, the impact shaking the ground heavily. The unexpected arrival leaves him frozen in shock, realizing someone dangerous has just appeared. A cold, oppressive presence fills the area as something ominous silently approaches, creating tension before anyone speaks. A woman casually smiles and comments that the boy they saw earlier was somewhat cute, clearly amused by the situation. She then asks Lita for her opinion, but Lita freezes, caught off guard and unable to respond immediately. Suddenly, the moment is shattered as a blonde boy is violently grabbed and slammed, the impact cutting the conversation short and turning the atmosphere dangerous. The blonde boy is suddenly struck and sent reeling, his expression twisting in shock as the attack lands without warning. A man lifts him off the ground by the neck, coldly stating that this outcome was obvious, while the boy coughs and struggles helplessly. Close up, the blonde boy groans in pain, sweat dripping as he fights to breathe under the crushing grip. Another man angrily questions why a human would be here at all, but he is immediately shut down by a sharp shout, escalating the hostility in the room. The man violently demands an answer from Lita, then immediately smashes the blonde boy down with brutal force, leaving no room for hesitation. The impact cracks against the ground as the boy coughs violently, blood spilling from his mouth while his body convulses in pain. Barely conscious, he admits that he already knew the truth but refused to accept it, sobbing as he struggles to breathe under the pressure. Watching this unfold, one figure coldly mocks the mistake, glaring down at the broken boy with clear disdain. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, a woman urgently shouts for them to stop, warning that Lita will be killed if it continues. Her plea comes too late as a sudden slap strikes Lita hard, the force snapping her head aside without mercy. The impact sends Lita flying back violently, her body crashing through the air as the power behind the blow explodes outward. She slams into the surroundings with repeated heavy impacts, the echoing force making it clear she has no chance to resist. The man coldly warns that he only needs a single finger to end her life, slicing her without hesitation as she winces in pain. After the attack, one of them asks how she knew the truth so quickly, while she explains that she realized it the moment she sensed his blood. Confused and frustrated, she questions how a human could possess such power, insisting she had no way of knowing more than that. As the tension lingers, one man decides to step away and contact Huachuo, while quietly planning to find out what the human is really plotting. The man calmly tells Lita that the only reason she is still alive is because her power is useful to him, making his control clear. He lifts her face and points out her unique ability to read powers, forcing her to acknowledge it under pressure. Struggling to breathe, Lita quietly agrees, her weakened state showing she has no strength left to resist. Leaning closer, he reminds her that her power still failed today, questioning why he should spare her when all she managed to do was recognize a mere human. The man presses down on Lita's head, demanding her absolute loyalty and making it clear he expects obedience without question. Under the crushing pressure, Lita trembles on the ground, barely holding herself upright as fear and pain overwhelm her. He suddenly yanks her head back and orders her to answer, forcing a scream out of her as blood spills from her mouth. Lita hastily submits and agrees, while the scene cuts to the silent corridor, leaving the threat hanging in the air. Lita's bound hands twitch as she flinches instinctively, her body still reacting in fear even after submitting. Elsewhere, a furious man roars the name Jangzung Bayam, his rage and killing intent clearly surging. At the same time, a blond man calmly touches his head, quietly wondering if he will ever see them again. In a dim room, another man sits on the floor grumbling to himself, the aftermath of the incident lingering in silence. Sitting alone, the boy lets out a tired sigh, admitting to himself that he will probably die long before any hope of escape arrives. Footsteps approach as someone carries a bowl filled with food, the sound breaking the heavy silence of the room. The boy looks up in surprise and asks if the food is meant for him, hesitating as the person in front of him stops. The bowl is placed down with a soft clack, confirming it is indeed for him and marking a small but unexpected shift in his situation. As the food is left behind, the boy urgently calls out, complaining that he cannot even eat properly in his current condition. The person pauses at the doorway and stops without turning around, letting the complaint hang in the air. After a brief glance back, he calmly states that the boy possesses powers, revealing he already knows the truth. The boy reacts with confusion and pain, groaning softly as the realization hits him. The boy suddenly reacts in shock as he senses something activate, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. A strange object floats unsteadily in the air, wobbling as he concentrates, realizing he has never needed this level of precision before. He steadies his focus and carefully flicks it, regaining control as the movement finally stabilizes. Watching with a smirk, the other man casually suggests that with such control, the boy could easily cut off his restraints. The boy's eyes widen in shock as he suddenly realizes what is happening, sensing danger at the last second. His restraints snap violently, and he crashes down hard, screaming as debris and metal scatter from the impact. He lies on the ground groaning, clutching his body while a faint laugh escapes him, half in pain and half in disbelief. Slowly rising back up, he looks ahead and questions what is so funny, the clack of the broken cuffs echoing as the situation turns in his favor. A heavy presence fills the room as someone mocks the situation, dismissing the new kid as an idiot while tension quietly builds. The boy turns sharply toward the voice and demands to know who the person is, his guard rising instantly. A man casually sits back with confidence, mentioning that Yiwung warned him not to interact, clearly unbothered by the hostility. With a relaxed chuckle, he adds that the boy looks starving, making it obvious he is enjoying being in control of the moment. The boy mutters that he is still alive thanks to the food, staring down at the spilled bowl as exhaustion weighs on him. The man remarks that a dampier must have already cleaned the place with him earlier, casually downplaying what just happened. When the boy reacts, the man dismisses it as inevitable, mocking him as pathetic while showing no concern. Asked how long he has been here, the boy answers vaguely, saying it has been about a month, with most of that time lost to unconsciousness. The man starts to ask for the boy's name, but the boy abruptly tells him to wait, sensing something wrong. The man's expression instantly hardens as he whips his head around, realizing that someone dangerous has arrived. A sharp close-up of his eye shows pure alertness as he locks onto the sudden presence. In the next moment, something rushes through the area at extreme speed, the air splitting as the situation turns urgent. A woman suddenly appears at high speed, stopping right in front of them and greeting the man with a mocking, overly familiar tone. She leans in close, asking if he has thought things through, while he responds with open hostility and clear irritation. The man snaps back, shouting that he would rather die than listen to her voice, making the tension explode instantly. Unbothered, she criticizes his rude manners, teasing that it is a waste of a good face, and casually remarks that his blade will only rust the longer he stays locked inside. The man's expression sharpens as killing intent flashes through his eyes, the atmosphere turning deadly in an instant. He unleashes a brutal slash, cutting down his target with overwhelming force as blood and impact lines explode across the scene. Standing amid the aftermath, he pants lightly with his blade in hand, the defeated bodies scattered below him. Watching closely, the woman smirks and admits that breaking through Class 12 would not have been possible without him, even if they might have survived anyway. The man bluntly states that he only acted for his class, making it clear he had no intention of helping anyone else. As the aftermath settles, he asks why the boy risked his life, pointing out that his actions directly saved 2 people. The question hits hard, and the boy freezes in shock, suddenly realizing the weight of what he actually did. The man stays silent, offering no answer, leaving the moment hanging with heavy tension. The woman grins and offers a deal, saying she will speak to their boss if the boy brings the others back alive. Laughing it off, she adds that he can earn forgiveness by killing them and rejoining their side. The man beside her snickers, clearly entertained by how casually the offer is made. Coldly rejecting it, he remarks that such a proposal sounds exactly like something people with no self-respect would ask. The woman urgently warns that the Dampier will start killing soon, stressing that she is not exaggerating the danger. Losing his patience, the man snaps back and harshly tells her to get out of his face, shutting her down completely. She pauses in silence, studying him with a thoughtful look as she quietly weighs his reaction. With a cold glare, he states that he does not want things to end this way, invoking the name of the great Cheok Young as the tension peaks. A sudden movement cuts through the air, snapping the tension as something fast and unseen closes in. The boy's eye widens in shock, sweat forming as he realizes the name he just heard carries terrifying weight. The man repeats the name Cheok Young, his tone steady, making it clear this is no empty threat. He settles into a dominant stance, asserting control as the gravity of the situation fully sinks in. The boy freezes in disbelief as the name sinks in, realizing he is facing the legendary warrior from the Goryeo dynasty. The image of Cheok Young stands vividly in his mind, confirming that the threat in front of him is real and overwhelming. Regaining his thoughts, the boy reasons that if others were allowed to leave alive, then there must be a way out of this place. As the idea forms, a faint smirk appears on the man's face, suggesting he already understands what the boy is thinking. The man calmly explains that he helped them escape the school, specifically sending them out of Class 13. When questioned, he clarifies that they were redirected to Class 12 because the Dampier had ordered him to kill them. Lying restrained on the ground, he adds that the Dampier has no use for anyone who cannot fight. The boy, confused by the sudden question, asks what he means, as the explanation takes an unexpected turn. The man scoffs that killing people who cannot even fight feels pointless, then admits the boy turned out better than he expected. He questions whether the ones who escaped are truly safe now, forcing the boy to confront the reality of the situation. He explains that for now they are fine, since he wiped out everyone in Class 12 who tried to attack them. However, he adds that they are still trapped inside the school, powerless, and unable to escape on their own. The boy listens in shock as the man calmly says he did everything he could to help them, even if it meant ending up chained in that place himself. He shrugs it off, saying he made his choice and is now paying the price for it without regret. Suddenly, a girl appears holding a bowl and questions what they are even talking about, shifting the tension in the room. She reveals that the mercenaries sent by Dampier have already captured Jeff and Tammy, leaving both of them stunned by the news. The girl panics and warns that in just 1 hour, Dampier plans to kill Jeff and Tammy right in front of them. The boy snaps back in anger, calling Dampier a complete psychopath and clenching his fists as rage builds. Enraged, the chained man shouts that he will kill Dampier himself, screaming his name without hesitation. But Dampier coldly turns around and mocks him, saying he can barely move in his current state, instantly crushing his threat. A sudden slam echoes through the room, cutting off the heated argument and drawing everyone's attention. The man snarls in irritation, calling the boy a scrawny punk and saying it's not like the girl can do anything to help. At the same time, something metallic skids across the floor, clinking loudly as it comes to a stop between them. The boy freezes and stares at it in shock, realizing something unexpected has just entered the situation. The boy's eyes widen as he realizes the object on the floor is a set of keys, glowing faintly as they hover in front of him. He quickly understands that Lita is the one helping them, and relief mixes with excitement as hope finally appears. In the next instant, the keys fly through the air at high speed, heading straight toward them. Without hesitation, the boy reaches out and snatches the keys, marking the start of their escape plan. As the keys are about to be used, a woman suddenly appears with a grin, questioning why they are trying to escape instead of listening to her. She mocks them calmly, blaming everything on the girl who helped and making it clear she noticed the escape attempt. The chained man reacts in fury and shouts her name, veins bulging as he struggles against his restraints. Unbothered, she turns away and says she will inform Dampier about this, telling them to meet him in the auditorium before disappearing instantly. The man desperately shouts after Tabasa, straining against his restraints as she vanishes without looking back. Left behind, he trembles in silence and realizes that Jeff and Tammy may end up dying because of his actions. He mutters Junyoung's name, guilt and fear clearly reflected in his eyes as the weight of the situation sinks in. Moments later, the scene shifts to the auditorium, where heavy footsteps echo and everyone drops to the ground, signaling that the final confrontation is about to begin. In the auditorium, the leader raises his hand and announces that tonight is the night of punishment, declaring that anyone who betrayed them will meet their doom. Whispers spread through the crowd as Jeff and Tammy's names are mentioned, with people murmuring that they tried to escape but were quickly caught. The leader orders the next culprit to be brought out, revealing the one who helped them escape, and Junyoung is dragged into view, shocking everyone present. With a twisted grin, the leader declares that the final traitor is someone from their own ranks and commands his men to seize them, pushing the situation toward total chaos. The leader suddenly grabs the girl from behind, mocking her fear as she desperately asks why he is doing this to her. In the next instant, he launches a brutal attack, kicking one person aside while striking another with overwhelming force, sending bodies flying across the floor. A terrified onlooker freezes in shock as the violent blows land one after another, the sound of impacts echoing through the hall. One victim collapses to the ground in pain, barely able to move, while the attacker steps forward calmly, asserting complete control over the situation. The leader grins and signals to continue, ordering his men to start the execution without hesitation. One subordinate raises his weapon high, preparing to strike as the captive struggles helplessly beneath his grip. Just as the blade swings down, a sudden disturbance cuts through the air, shocking everyone and halting the attack mid-motion. A desperate shout rings out, forcing all eyes to turn as the execution is abruptly interrupted at the last second. He drops to his knees and begs, offering to obey anything as long as the others are spared. The leader laughs at the sight, mocking him for kneeling and enjoying his complete humiliation. Even after hearing the plea, the leader coldly rejects it, saying that submission alone isn't enough for him. Without hesitation, he brings his weapon down again, striking him brutally and making it clear the violence isn't over yet. The attacker doesn't stop, launching another violent combination and smashing him down while demanding confirmation that he'll obey. A heavy blow slams into his body, leaving him sprawled on the floor and completely overwhelmed by the assault. Gritting through the pain, he desperately reaches out and grabs onto the attacker, trying to stop the next strike. Screaming in agony, he finally gives in again, begging them to let the others go as the beating continues. After crushing him into the ground, the leader finally agrees to the deal and orders his men to let the captives go. Lying face down and barely conscious, he forces out a weak laugh, relieved that his sacrifice worked. As the tension eases, his battered face is shown up close, bloodied but still conscious after enduring the beating. With the danger momentarily over, he struggles to get up while someone rushes to check on Lita, calling out to her in concern. Just when everyone thinks it's over, the leader changes his tone, saying it's only fair he gets something in return for agreeing. He drags the battered man back up, reminding him of his promise and coldly confirming that he'll obey any order. As fear spreads, the demand becomes clear, and the situation turns even more horrifying than before. The leader gives his final command, ordering him to kill the others himself, pushing him into an impossible choice. Hearing the order, he snaps back in rage, cursing the leader and refusing to accept such a twisted demand. The leader only laughs, mocking him and pointing out that backing out now would mean breaking his own promise. In a sudden, shocking move, the leader turns his violence elsewhere, striking without warning and sending a body crashing down. The brutal impact leaves everyone frozen in horror, their faces filled with shock as they realize the situation has taken an even darker turn. Trembling and barely standing, he calls out Young-Young's name and asks him to look after Tammy, sensing something is about to change. As blood drips down his face, his grip tightens and a strange power surges through him, shocking everyone nearby. Someone demands to know what he's doing, but the answer becomes clear as an overwhelming aura erupts from his body. His eyes glow with violent energy, and even while wounded, he reveals that he still has a way to fight back, turning the tables in an instant. Blue lightning gathers into a dense sphere as an unstable surge of power forms in front of him, crackling violently through the air. Seeing the energy build, someone screams Jeff's name in panic as his face twists in shock and pain. The power explodes outward, completely engulfing him in a storm of blue flames and lightning as he roars in agony. The blast detonates with a thunderous impact, shaking the entire area and leaving everyone stunned by the sheer force of the attack. The explosion settles, and a scream echoes as the aftermath reveals someone has been completely taken out by the blast. Smoke clears to show the body collapsing, the attack having ended instantly and without mercy. The leader calmly explains that he survived only by using someone else as protection, smirking at how easily things turned in his favor. Stepping forward without hesitation, he declares one target down and casually suggests moving on to the next victim, sending fear through everyone still standing. Grinding his teeth, he struggles to hold himself together as rage boils over. His expression twists, veins bulging as he snaps and unleashes his fury. He roars Dampier's name, openly declaring his intent to kill him. The shout echoes through the area, signaling that the confrontation has fully crossed the point of no return. The scene begins with a chilling silence as a hand begins to disintegrate. Jeff's body crumbles into ash, turning into nothing but dust that scatters into the cold air. Standing alone in the wreckage, a witness watches in absolute horror. As the last of the remains vanish into the wind, they can only whisper one name in disbelief: Jeff. The atmosphere grows heavy with tension and grief. Overwhelmed by the loss, the survivor grits their teeth in a silent, agonizing display of fury and pain. Tears stream from glowing eyes as the boy's power begins to crackle and surge. Consumed by rage, he lashes out at his enemy, trembling as he cries out, "You coward! You're a goddamn monster!" Driven by an unstoppable rage, the boy's eyes erupt with a blinding blue light as energy swirls violently around him. He stares down his opponent, his voice trembling with conviction as he vows, "I won't let you get away with this, Dampier." Those standing nearby are left in a state of utter disbelief, their expressions frozen in shock. They can only watch helplessly as the boy's power reaches a terrifying peak, sensing that the situation has spiraled completely out of control. Despite the tears of grief falling from his eyes, the boy pours every ounce of his strength into a devastating downward strike. A thunderous bang echoes through the air as his fist makes contact, releasing a blinding surge of concentrated force. The impact triggers a catastrophic explosion that tears the surroundings apart. A massive blast wave radiates outward, sending debris flying as the sheer scale of his power levels everything in its path. Driven by a thirst for vengeance, the boy erupts in a desperate rage. He turns to his ally and demands immediate retribution, screaming at the top of his lungs for the enemy to be eliminated. "Go! Kill him! Make him pay!" The fighter accepts the command with a dark, confident smirk. As he prepares to step into the fray, he menacingly twists his wrist and readies his body for the coming slaughter, responding with a single, chilling word: "Gladly." Unfazed by the threat, the opponent bursts into a fit of mocking laughter. He looks on with pure arrogance, dismissing the fighter as a mere loser and treating the impending battle like a source of amusement, tauntingly remarking, "I'm sure this'll be good." The atmosphere turns heavy as the true battle begins. With a sharp, resounding clap of his hands, a surge of power is unleashed. The focus shifts entirely to the target of their fury as the name of the monster is hissed into the air: Dampier. The hero channels his inner power, pulling a blade of pure blue energy directly from his body as a blinding light consumes the room. With his eyes glowing with newfound intensity, he prepares to unleash his full strength against the monster before him. Standing tall and engulfed in a spiritual aura, he points his weapon at his enemy with unwavering resolve. He makes his intentions clear, declaring that the time for games is over. It's time you pay the price for all the terror you've inflicted. The scarred antagonist merely snickers at the display of power. He dismisses the hero's reputation with an arrogant, fanged grin, taunting his opponent by saying, "You know, some say you are actually stronger than me, but I don't see it." Enraged by the mockery, the hero lunges forward with incredible speed, shattering the ground in his wake. He lets out a final, decisive roar, screaming, "You're dead," as he delivers a crushing blow intended to end the conflict once and for all. The battle reaches a fever pitch as a shocked witness cries out for Haseon. Amidst the chaos, the sheer power of the hero's glowing weapon does not go unnoticed, prompting an observer to remark in awe, "That's one hell of a sword." A sudden, violent collision rocks the battlefield. With a thunderous wham, a massive surge of golden energy and blue light erupts at the point of impact, signaling a strike of immense power that sends shockwaves through the air. The conflict transforms into a blur of high-speed motion. The fighters streak across the area with incredible agility, their movements appearing as multiple silhouettes against a red-tinted haze as they weave through the wreckage with a series of sharp swishes and whooshes. Despite the display of power, frustration begins to set in as the enemy continues to evade. Gritting his teeth in annoyance, the fighter lets out an exhausted shout, taunting his opponent for their constant retreating by yelling, "Are you just gonna keep running away?" With his resolve hardened, the fighter tightens his grip on his weapon. He channels his spiritual energy into the hilt, his hand trembling slightly as a blue aura swirls around the blade in preparation for a final, decisive strike. In a sudden explosion of speed, he lunges forward and brings the blade down with lethal intent. A massive trail of energy follows the arc of his weapon as he executes a powerful slash, cutting through the air with terrifying precision. The attack connects with devastating force, catching the antagonist off guard. A thick gush of dark liquid sprays across the room as the blade tears through his defenses, leaving the scarred warrior reeling from the overwhelming impact. The enemy recoils in agony, clutching his chest as he struggles to breathe through the pain. As the hero stands his ground, the defeated monster glares back with pure hatred, wheezing out a final, pained curse, "You son of a—" Standing over his wounded opponent, the hero stares him down with glowing blue eyes and unwavering confidence. He mocks the monster's current state, asking if it's been a long time since he was forced to taste his own blood. Despite the dark liquid staining his neck, the antagonist merely responds with a wide, sadistic grin. He remains completely unfazed by the injury, chillingly dismissing the pain by claiming he has absolutely no interest in his own blood. The tension breaks as the atmosphere suddenly ripples with a surge of digital energy. With a sharp pop, a new warrior with glowing purple eyes manifests on the battlefield, appearing out of thin air and ready to join the fray. While the hero holds his ground below, his new ally descends through the air with a swift, aggressive motion. As she dives into the heart of the wreckage, the stage is set for a new phase in the life or death struggle against the Dampier. The female ally dives into the fray with incredible speed, her eyes glowing with a vibrant purple light as she descends through the air. She targets the battlefield with a powerful overhead strike, intent on crushing anything in her path. With a massive slam, her hand hits the ground, sending out a shockwave that shatters the concrete beneath her. However, the hero remains completely unfazed, watching her aggressive but reckless display of power from just a few feet away. In a blur of motion, the hero maneuvers behind her with effortless precision. His own eyes glow with a piercing blue light as he easily reads her every movement, dismissing the attack as he calmly remarks, "So predictable." He immediately counters with a brutal, high-speed strike that catches her completely off guard. The devastating impact of the blow sends her reeling in pain as she lets out a sharp "arg," proving that her raw power is no match for his superior speed and calculation. The protagonist follows through with a lethal downward slice, but his blade only meets empty air as the woman vanishes in a burst of digital energy. The sudden disappearance leaves the battlefield in a blur of motion and confusion. Shocked by the abrupt escape, the fighter pauses to process the situation. He scans the area with intensity, realizing that if his opponent has successfully evaded the strike, it means she possesses a much higher level of agility than he initially anticipated. Reappearing a safe distance away with a swift swish, the female warrior catches her breath. She looks visibly shaken by the close call, exhaling in relief as she admits to herself, "Phew, he almost got me." The hero narrows his eyes, focusing intently on his target with a skeptical and cold expression. He repeats her words under his breath with a questioning tone, almost, signaling that he hasn't even begun to show the full extent of his true power. The tide of battle shifts instantly as the female warrior is struck by a devastating blow. Blood spurts from her chest as she lets out a pained gasp, her eyes wide with shock and agony as the force of the attack overcomes her. She collapses completely, hitting the ground with a heavy thud as she loses consciousness. As she lies defeated in the wreckage, the protagonist's shadow looms over her, marking a grim moment of silence in the middle of the chaos. Watching the scene with sadistic amusement, the scarred monster lets out a mocking laugh. He ridicules her lack of endurance, arrogantly asking, "Is that all it takes to bring you down?" before deciding it's time for him to rejoin the fight. Refusing to back down, the hero ignites his power and lunges forward in a high-speed dash. With his eyes glowing a fierce blue, he screams out a challenge to his enemy, Dampier, while the monster merely clicks his tongue in annoyance at the incoming strike. The Dampier finally loses his patience, his expression contorting into a look of pure irritation. Lashing out at the persistent resistance, he thrusts his hands forward as a sudden, blinding flash fills the room. He snarls at his opponent, declaring, "You are such a pain in the ass." The surge of power is instantaneous and overwhelming. His victim is caught in the wake of the energy, beginning to wiggle and writhe frantically as the dark, shadowy force begins to constrict around her. She finds herself completely immobilized by the sudden onslaught. The atmosphere becomes thick with the scent of iron as a violent effwhoosh of crimson energy erupts. Caught in the center of the storm, the fighter lets out a pained gasp, gagging as the sheer intensity of the power consumes everything in its path. With a sickening spurt, the technique reaches its full, terrifying scale. A massive, jagged structure made of hardened dark liquid pins the survivor to the ground under a blinding flare of light. The witness stares in disbelief, gasping, "Is that a net made of blood?" The dark technique intensifies as the blood-like tendrils begin to spin and twist with violent speed. The air grows heavy with the scent of iron as the crimson energy forms an inescapable web around the battlefield, leaving the hero with no room to escape. With a sharp and sudden clasp, the trap is sprung. The lethal tendrils wrap tightly around the protagonist, pinning his arms and legs to his body. He finds himself completely neutralized and immobilized, unable to move a single muscle as the Dampier's power constricts him. The antagonist erupts into a fit of arrogant laughter, relishing the sight of his trapped opponent. He mocks the hero's current helplessness, taunting him by sneering, "Not much you can do now that you can't swing that sword of yours around, huh?" Amidst the red haze and carnage, a blood-soaked hand slowly begins to lift from the ground. As the shadowed figure reaches out with sharp, dark claws, a weak and trembling voice calls out for help, whispering, "Be boss." The fallen warrior lies broken in a pool of her own blood, gasping for air as her strength fails. In a state of absolute desperation, she reaches out one last time and whispers a piteous plea for mercy, "Help me." Displaying a complete lack of empathy for his own subordinate, the Dampier responds with a brutal kick to her head. He silences her cries with cold indifference, heartlessly commanding her to shut up as he turns his full attention back to the protagonist. With a sadistic glisten in his eyes, the monster lunges toward the immobilized hero. He relishes the thought of his impending victory, smiling wickedly as he declares that he hasn't yet had the chance to taste the hero's blood. Just as the predator prepares to strike, a sudden and violent surge of energy pierces through the crimson haze. With a sharp shoot sound effect, a lethal counterattack is launched, signaling a desperate and high-stakes turn in the battle. With a thunderous boom, Yiwung suddenly intervenes, his eyes glowing with a cold blue intensity as he unleashes a crushing blow. The unexpected arrival leaves the protagonist in a state of utter shock, as he can only gasp in disbelief. "Yiwung?" The impact catches the Dampier completely off guard, shattering his arrogance in an instant. His eyes widen in genuine shock and pain as the force of the strike ripples through him, leaving him staggered and vulnerable for the first time in the battle. The sound of bones snapping echoes through the wreckage as the antagonist's arm is twisted and broken by the sheer power of the intervention. Consumed by agony and rage, he lets out a blood-curdling scream. "Uahog! UF*seeking bastard!" Before the monster can recover, the momentum shifts further as another attack is launched to press the advantage. A lethal bolt of energy is fired with pinpoint accuracy, cutting through the air with a sharp shoot as it heads straight for the weakened enemy. With a swift and precise motion, the energy blade slices through the crimson trap. The blue dagger cuts deep into the heart of the constriction, shattering the Dampier's immobilization technique in a single, fluid strike. The blood net explodes into fragments as the technique is completely neutralized. The dark, red structures splatter and dissipate into the air, finally releasing the survivors from the suffocating grasp of the monster's power. Free at last, Yuwong gives a confident thumbs up to his comrade. He signals that the barrier has been destroyed, calling out to his friend to press the advantage. I cut the blood net, you can move now, Yongyong. Yongyong readies his own blade with a sharp, resounding ring. His eyes are filled with a cold, unwavering resolve as he stares down his enemy, preparing to end the nightmare once and for all as he declares, Dampier, it's over now. As the chaos subsides, a woman approaches the protagonist and issues a stern command, telling him, don't move. Caught completely off guard by her sudden interference, he can only respond with a confused and hesitant, huh? Without offering any further explanation, she reaches out and places her hand firmly on his shoulder. With a soft pat, a surge of vibrant blue spiritual energy flows from her touch, beginning to envelop his body in a mysterious and powerful aura. The atmosphere hums with a low V-woom as her eyes ignite with an intense, glowing blue light. It becomes clear that she is channeling an immense amount of concentrated energy directly into him, causing the air around them to crackle with tension. The protagonist's eyes widen in absolute shock as he feels the raw power coursing through his veins. Paralyzed by the sudden influx of strength, he can only stare back in silence, struggling to process the overwhelming sensation of the energy taking hold. A sudden, overwhelming surge of energy begins to swirl around the hero as he struggles to comprehend the transformation. As a mysterious force takes hold, a voice echoes through the blue haze, declaring that he is finally awakening his true power and that the vagrant will transcend once again. Stunned by the intensity of the sensation, the protagonist can only stare back in absolute disbelief. His mind races to find an explanation for the incredible strength now coursing through his veins, and he can only whisper a single word in shock. What? The power manifests physically as his weapon is suddenly engulfed in a brilliant, flickering blue light. With his eyes glowing in tandem with the blade, he watches the transformation in awe, realizing that his sword has been completely covered by a mysterious and powerful aura. He turns to the woman behind him, questioning if she is responsible for this unsolicited gift of strength. She quickly shuts down his protests, urging him to put his confusion aside and concentrate on the life or death battle ahead. We can talk about it later. You need to focus now. The villain dominates the battlefield, delivering a crushing kick that sends his opponent reeling. With a thunderous wham, the force of the blow knocks the fighter backward, clearing the path for the monster to continue his rampage. Growing increasingly frustrated by the persistent resistance, the Dampier snarls that everyone has gone crazy. He issues a cold, mocking challenge, telling his opponents to come forward so he can help them join Old Man Jeff in death. Enraged by the mockery of his fallen comrade, the hero lunges into the fray with a fierce, high-speed strike. He refuses to hear another word from the monster, shouting, "Shut your mouth," as he connects with a powerful, bone-shattering blow. Capitalizing on the opening, the hero follows through with a devastating overhead slash. The impact of the blade leaves the villain reeling in pain, forced to let out a pained grunt as his arrogance is finally met with overwhelming force. The hero realizes that his opponent is finally within his reach. Seeing the monster beginning to falter, he prepares himself for a final, decisive strike, determinedly thinking, I definitely got him for sure this time. I need to end this with one blow. The villain's body begins to give out under the pressure of the previous attacks. He hunches over in absolute agony, letting out a pained gag and coughing up a dark spray of blood as his strength rapidly fades. With his resolve at a boiling point, the protagonist's eyes flare with an intense, glowing blue light. He launches into a high-speed charge, letting out a primal roar of "Gra!" as he pours every ounce of his energy into his next move. In a blinding blur of motion, he executes a lethal X-slash. The dual-bladed strike carves through the air with a devastating slice, leaving a trail of blood in its wake as he tears through his enemy's final defenses. The brutal encounter reaches a gruesome end with a blood-curdling scream. The Dampier is sent reeling through the air, his body contorting in absolute agony as the sheer force of the final blow completely overwhelms his defenses. Crashing to the cold floor, the once formidable warrior lies in the wreckage, trembling and shaking with uncontrollable shock. He stares at the bloody floor in a daze, wheezing out a pained realization as he gasps, "My arm." The witnesses can only watch the scene in a heavy, uncomfortable silence. The atmosphere shifts from a life-or-death struggle to a grim sense of pity as they look down at the defeated monster, with one observer simply remarking, "This is just sad." Gasping for breath and drenched in his own blood, the villain pathetically clutches at his wound while his severed limb dangles nearby. All of his previous arrogance has vanished, replaced by the whimpering cries of a broken man as he moans, "Oe, my arm, my arm." In the aftermath of the brutal confrontation, the protagonist stands in silence, deeply unsettled by the ease of his victory. He reflects on the final blow, realizing that despite barely tapping into his strength, he was able to cut through his enemy's defenses as if they were nothing more than paper. His eyes drift down to his weapon, which still vibrates with a cold, blue energy that he has never felt before. He is haunted by the cryptic words he received earlier, struggling to understand the meaning behind the claim that he is transcending to a new level of power. Seeking answers, he casts a sharp glance toward the woman who triggered this sudden evolution. He observes her calm demeanor amidst the destruction, theorizing that she might actually hold the key to unlocking the dormant, godlike powers hidden deep within the souls of others. The muscular, tattooed man groans in pain as he is swung through the air, completely unable to regain his footing or defend himself. Watching the struggle from the sidelines, a blonde woman shouts impatiently, demanding that her ally stop hesitating and finish the man off immediately. Paralyzed with a mix of rage and terror, the man freezes as he realizes his predicament, swearing a bitter oath that he will make everyone pay for what is happening to him. Standing victoriously with his sword drawn, the swordsman looks down at his opponent and mocks him, questioning how someone known as the fearsome Duke of Blood could be so easily defeated. With a mocking smirk, the swordsman sarcastically addresses the defeated man as "Your Grace," assuming that a man of his reputation would be far too proud to beg for his life. Panicked and flinching from the cold steel, the man desperately pleads for a moment of time, questioning if the swordsman truly believes that just anyone is fit to step up as the class leader. Trying to push the blade away, he frantically argues that his survival is necessary, asking who would possibly be left to deal with the guards if he were to be killed right then and there. He lets out a desperate, sweat-drenched laugh as the blade remains inches from his face, insisting that they aren't living in total anarchy and that there is still a system in place that must be respected. As dark, glowing-eyed figures loom in the background, the man reveals that there are mysterious individuals who are secretly in control of everything happening within the facility. The blonde woman steps forward, completely unimpressed by his warning, and dismissively asks, "So what?" showing no fear of the shadowy figures he mentioned. The man lets out a desperate chuckle, arguing that they would never get away with killing a class leader, and that they actually need to keep him alive if they want to save themselves from the higher-ups. The swordsman pauses to ponder the situation, rubbing his chin as he openly admits that he isn't quite sure whether or not he is convinced by the man's desperate plea for his life. The swordsman questions the man's claims, pointing out that when he previously wiped out everyone in Class 12, the guards didn't intervene or punish him, suggesting the system isn't as strict as claimed. Gasping in desperation, the man screams that the guards only stayed away because of him, claiming he had to work incredibly hard to convince them to let the swordsman go after that massive killing spree. He continues to yell frantically, trying to prove his worth by insisting that his personal influence with the authorities is the only reason the swordsman is still standing there today. Unmoved by the explanation, the swordsman simply lets out a cold laugh and flatly states that he isn't buying a single word of the story, refusing to believe the man has any power over the situation. Ignoring the desperate pleas of the man who calls him insane, the swordsman brings his blade down in a swift, merciless strike. The terrified man can only gasp in shock as he realizes his warnings of making a huge mistake have been completely ignored. The blade connects with brutal precision, severing the man's bandaged arm in a violent spray of blood. A massive spurt of crimson fills the air as the limb is completely detached, ending the man's attempt to defend himself. The swordsman lets out a sharp grunt of exertion as the blood from the impact gushes across his face. He remains unfazed by the carnage, maintaining a cold and singular focus on his opponent despite the gore splattered over him. In a blur of motion, the swordsman lunges forward to continue his relentless assault while the maimed man desperately dashes away. Both figures move with incredible speed as the deadly pursuit reaches its violent conclusion. Despite the severe injury and the loss of his limb, the scarred man known as the Duke of Blood manages a sinister smirk. He lets out a dark, mocking chuckle, seemingly unbothered by the pain as he prepares to reveal a hidden trump card or a final desperate move against his attackers. His overconfidence is short-lived as a massive, invisible force suddenly slams into him with a heavy thud. The impact is so powerful that it sends him reeling backward, forcing a pained scream from his throat as his body is thrown across the ground, completely breaking his momentum. As he struggles to sit up, his eyes widen in pure terror at the sight of a new figure standing over him, eyes glowing with a menacing blue light. Paralyzed by the sheer pressure of the stranger's presence, the Duke of Blood stammers out his disbelief, demanded to know how and when the man managed to break free from his restraints. Trembling and covered in cold sweat, the Duke of Blood can only watch in horror as he realizes the true nature of the monster before him. He twitches in shock, questioning how it is biologically possible for a human to recover from such devastating wounds and heal their entire body at such an impossible, inhuman speed. With a condescending smirk, the young man in the gray uniform mocks his opponent by calling him a dumbass, leaving the scarred warrior gasping in sudden, shocked disbelief. Completely losing his temper, the muscular man launches a ferocious charge at his target, screaming profanities and demanding that the young man give up because the battle is already decided. The scarred fighter lets out a manic cackle as he continues his relentless assault, flatly refusing to back down and insisting that he is far from being finished with the fight. Suddenly, a violent surge of dark energy and shadowy wings erupts from the warrior's body in a massive explosion of power, leaving his opponent frozen in confusion at the terrifying transformation. A massive swarm of dark, bat-like silhouettes erupts into the room, filling the air with the sound of flapping wings as they flutter chaotically through the red-tinged space. Visibly annoyed by the sudden distraction, the swordsman clicks his tongue before unleashing a powerful, wide, sweeping slash to clear the path directly in front of him. The blade slices clean through the shadowy energy with a brilliant flash of light, causing a violent gush of dark fluid to erupt as the strike connects with its target. Despite the successful counterattack, the remaining shadows continue to surge forward in a relentless flutter of wings, completely overwhelming the battlefield with their constant movement. In the aftermath of the transformation, a young man gasps in pure shock, admitting to the blonde woman that he had absolutely no idea their opponent was capable of such a supernatural feat. The blonde woman gazes off with a somber expression, revealing that while she knew about the man's secret ability, she never expected he would use it as a desperate means of escape. As the last of the shadowy bat-like creatures is sliced through with a cold, precise stroke of the blade, the swordsman dismisses the escape as irrelevant now that the immediate threat has been neutralized. Raising his sword high into the air, the swordsman victoriously shouts to the gathered crowd that the Dampier has finally been driven away, declaring Class 13 officially free from his reign of terror. Amidst the lingering tension, the survivors exchange looks of cautious hope, stammering out questions to confirm if the nightmare is truly over. They look toward their saviors, desperate to know for certain if they are finally out of harm's way and truly safe from the terror that had suppressed them. Once the reality of their victory sinks in, the atmosphere shifts from fear to absolute jubilation. The entire area erupts with thunderous cheers and triumphant roars as the crowd pumps their fists in the air, celebrating the downfall of their oppressor with a collective release of pent-up emotion. The joyous celebration is brought to a sudden, jarring halt by a single, booming command. Someone in the crowd screams for everyone to wait, their piercing shout cutting through the noise and instantly replacing the room's celebratory energy with a heavy sense of dread and renewed conflict. Directing his fury at a woman named Tabasa, an angry survivor shouts that their freedom does not mean she is forgiven for her actions. Tabasa is left gasping in terror as the man's aggressive stance and hateful words turn the crowd's focus toward her, making it clear that old grudges are far from settled. Tabasa remains collapsed on the floor, trembling in fear as the group of survivors looms over her. Consumed by rage, the mob declares that it is finally time for her to pay for her actions, believing that her death is the only thing that will bring them peace and that her execution will feel earned. Before the situation can escalate into a public execution, Haseon steps forward and places a firm, grounding hand on the shoulder of one of the men. He commands the group to hold on, using his sudden intervention to disrupt their violent momentum and stall the impending attack on the helpless woman. Looking directly at the survivors with a serious and pained expression, Haseon explains that while he fully understands their deep-seated anger, taking a life in this manner is fundamentally wrong. He urges the group to reconsider their path, insisting that sinking to this level of revenge simply isn't the right thing to do. Unmoved by the moral plea, the swordsman turns back to look at Haseon with a skeptical and cold gaze. He questions the practical logic behind showing mercy, bluntly asking what possible value her life has to them now and why they should bother letting her live when she has nothing left to offer. Haseon clarifies his strategic reason for showing mercy, telling the group that they will definitely need the woman once the guards eventually arrive to investigate the chaos. The scene shifts deep into the dark and damp depths of the facility's sewer system. Murky water sloshes against the cold concrete walls of the silent, underground tunnels. In the oppressive darkness, the rhythmic splashing of water echoes through the narrow passageways as someone moves quickly through the hidden drainage system. Wading through the filth and murky liquid, feet trudge forward one step at a time. Every movement creates a loud slosh and splash, marking the difficult progress through the treacherous sewer path. A white-haired investigator stares in stunned silence at a gruesome sight before him. He stands completely speechless as he begins to process the scale of the violence that occurred in the depths of the facility. Looking down at the pile of defeated bodies littering the sewer floor, the man laments the situation, calling the entire scene a complete mess. Shadows loom over the fallen as he surveys the aftermath of the brutal confrontation. A wounded man in an orange prisoner's uniform groans in agony while clutching his side. He weakly points out the culprits, telling the investigators that the carnage was caused by Dampier's subordinates. A group of armored figures gathers around more bodies further down the tunnel, concluding that the attackers hit a snag. They realize the violent struggle was an attempt to capture runaways who had been hiding within the sewer system. Gunther, the white-haired man, looks determined as he issues a direct order to establish a communication link. He commands his subordinate to patch him through to a person named Yuffie immediately to report on the situation. Robert, the bearded man, grunts in clear discomfort as he acknowledges the command with a respectful "Yes, Gunther." Despite his visible pain, he remains focused on following orders and maintaining his duty to his superior. The dark fabric of a long coat flutters violently in the wind, emphasizing the fast-paced and serious nature of the current environment. The atmosphere remains heavy and tense as the group prepares to transition to their next location. With his heavy cloak flapping behind him, Gunther takes a decisive step forward and tells Robert that it is finally time for them to depart. The duo moves with purpose, leaving the scene behind as they head toward their next major objective. With a sharp and intense expression, Gunther officially declares that they are now entering a state of open conflict. He states firmly that they are gearing up for war, making it clear that the previous skirmishes have escalated into something far more serious. Inside the director's office at the school HQ, the facility hums with a heavy technological buzz. High-tech monitors and server stacks fill the room with constant beeping and mechanical whirring as the headquarters transitions into a high-alert command center. Strategic blueprints and complex mapping data flicker across a computer terminal, signaling that a major operation is underway. The rhythmic beeping of the machines suggests that the facility is actively tracking movements or finalizing battle plans. Watching the events unfold from the shadows, a mysterious woman lets out a dark chuckle of amusement. She finds it impressive that the group actually managed to chase Dampier away, though she is left pondering where he could have possibly gone after such a decisive defeat. The man known as the Duke of Blood is seen in a state of utter desperation, dragging himself across the floor while leaving a heavy trail of blood. He groans in agonizing pain, cursing the fact that his leg has been severely injured alongside the rest of his body. From a secure surveillance room, a woman watches his pathetic struggle on a large screen with visible amusement. She mocks the fallen warrior's current condition, laughing at how far the fearsome Duke of Blood has fallen from his former glory. The scene is suddenly interrupted by the mechanical hum of automatic doors sliding open. The high-tech room remains tense as the sound signals the arrival of important visitors entering the high-security facility. A small, white-haired individual wearing a lab coat and round glasses enters the room, flanked by a towering, red-eyed bodyguard. The woman offers a formal greeting to the newcomer, addressing them as Dr. Huachuo as they step forward into the command center. Dr. Huachuo greets Euphemia with a wide grin, noting that her intense workload has made her a rare sight recently. He acknowledges the sheer effort she has been putting in, which has kept her busy and away from their usual interactions. Responding with a calm and soft tone, the woman requests a more informal address, asking the doctor to simply call her Yufei. This slight adjustment in their conversation suggests a level of familiarity and trust between the two colleagues. Dr. Huachuo continues his praise, observing that every time they meet, she appears just as dependable and imposing as ever. He stands before her, clearly impressed by the powerful aura and steadfast nature she maintains within the facility. Yufei accepts the compliment with a humble look, but she quickly turns the credit back toward him. She insists that her current strength and reliability are all thanks to the doctor's own contributions and support. Dr. Huachuo dismisses the high praise with a confident smirk, though he clearly relishes the recognition of his genius. He adjusts his glasses and tells his companion that they flatter him far too much, even as he basks in the success of his work. Turning his full attention to the pink-haired woman, the doctor admits that he cannot deny the truth of her excellence. He looks at her with pride and openly confesses that among all his scientific achievements, Euphemia is undoubtedly his greatest and most successful creation. The quiet atmosphere of the lab is suddenly broken by a sharp, persistent beeping from a nearby control console. This electronic alert signals an urgent incoming communication, cutting through their conversation and demanding an immediate response from the command center. When Yuffie asks for an update on the situation, a subordinate quickly informs her of a high-priority request. She learns that Gunther, the formidable leader of Class 11, has specifically reached out and is asking to speak with her directly. Euphemia is visibly taken aback when she hears that Gunther is making a specific request, only for a sweating subordinate to reveal that the Class 11 leader is officially seeking permission to launch an all-out war against Class 13. Upon hearing the news of the impending conflict, Dr. Huachuo begins to snicker and laugh uncontrollably. His reaction is so unsettling and out of place that one of the bystanders calls out to him in confusion, wondering what could possibly be so funny. The doctor continues to cackle with a wide-eyed, manic expression as a realization strikes him. He points out that Class 13 is the exact location where they previously placed the human known as Haseon, a detail that the green-haired subordinate quickly confirms. Flashing a sharp, jagged grin that reveals his predatory nature, the doctor addresses Yuffie with a sinister tone. He appears absolutely delighted by the situation, clearly finding the prospect of Gunther's war and Haseon's involvement to be part of a much larger, more entertaining plan. A hand carefully drips a dark, viscous fluid into a swirling pool, watching as the black droplets create ripples across the liquid surface as if beginning a grim experiment. Dr. Huachuo turns with a frantic energy, his eyes wide behind his glasses as he impatiently demands that the permission be granted for the classes to finally descend into total war. He lets out a piercing cackle, gleefully explaining that this kind of brutal conflict is the true purpose of the school and exactly what the institution was designed for. In an opulent, sun-drenched room, light streams through towering windows and glints off a grand chandelier above. The quiet, luxurious setting creates an atmosphere of stillness and isolation, away from the chaos of the facility. A single glass of whiskey on the rocks sits next to an expensive bottle, the amber liquid catching the light. The undisturbed drink suggests a moment of pause and solitary reflection for someone needing to clear their head. Reclining on a plush sofa is a woman with short silver hair and a notable scar across her face. With her eyes closed and hands tucked behind her head, she adopts a posture of weary relaxation, looking every bit the hardened veteran taking a much-needed break. She lets out a deep, contemplative sigh, her brow furrowing slightly as she rests in the silence. Without saying a word, she seems to be mentally preparing herself for the coming war that was just announced. A frantic subordinate slams his hand against the office door, urgently calling out to his superior. From within, the silver-haired woman responds with immediate concern, demanding to know what has happened. Injured and bleeding, the man enters the room to deliver the grim news that Kyungsik's office has just been hit. The woman is visibly stunned by the report, her eyes wide as she processes the fact that another one of their locations has been compromised. Her shock quickly turns to white-hot rage as she lets out a sharp yell, demanding to know if their recurring enemy is responsible for the chaos once again. She is clearly reaching the limit of her patience with these constant disruptions. The subordinate reveals that this is already the 5th time they have been targeted, explaining that the attacker is single-mindedly searching for a man named Haseon. Behind him, the devastation is clear as a powerful figure stands victoriously over a massive pile of fallen bodies. Gritting her teeth in a fit of silent fury, the silver-haired leader seethes over the sheer arrogance of her opponent. She mutters under her breath that the enemy is running around acting as if he already owns the entire world. Her bloodied subordinate attempts to offer strategic advice, suggesting that they immediately begin formulating a plan to counter the threat. Before he can finish his sentence, she sharply cuts him off, stating that she is already well aware of the situation. With a cold and calculating gaze, the woman narrows her eyes as she focuses on the person truly responsible for the chaos. She speaks the name of her target with a mix of reverence and malice, acknowledging the power of Master Emugi. Elsewhere, the primary target of the search remains motionless and unresponsive. Bathed in a dim, blue light, Haseon keeps his eyes tightly closed, seemingly unconscious or submerged as the war for his location intensifies above him. Within a high-tech medical chamber, a man remains submerged in a stasis tank, his survival dependent on an array of life support machinery as a desperate inquiry about the timing of his return hangs silently over his unconscious form. The scene shifts to the fortified NIST Task Force safe house, where the sterile and utilitarian environment sets a grim stage for the high-stakes intelligence briefing taking place within the secretive operations base. A female agent is gripped by visible shock and disbelief, her face covered in sweat as she hears a report that seems too incredible to be true, forcing her to vocalize her absolute skepticism regarding the dire news. Her shock turns to an incredulous scream upon learning that their target has successfully dismantled yet another Yacha gang hideout, a feat of relentless destructive power that leaves both her and her partner completely blindsided. The female agent questions the certainty of Bayam's involvement in the recent incident. Her partner confirms the identification, stating that they have already thoroughly reviewed the security camera footage to verify the suspect's identity. To provide concrete proof, the male agent slides a photograph across the table. He explains that this particular image was captured directly at the scene, showing a blonde individual who matches the suspect's description and further solidifies their findings. Upon seeing the evidence, the woman lets out a heavy sigh of exasperation. The realization of the situation weighs on her as she stares ahead, processing the immense complications that this confirmation brings to their ongoing investigation. Overwhelmed by the escalating chaos, she covers her eyes in frustration. She acknowledges the individual's desperate motivation to find Haseon, but laments that his reckless and destructive methods are only serving to make an already difficult situation much worse. The high-security door to the Intelligence Alliance office swings open with a sharp clack, signaling the conclusion of a private and intense investigation session. A male agent steps out into the hallway with a heavy tread, immediately drawing the focused attention of a female colleague who has been waiting expectantly for his return. Turning toward him with a look of intense anticipation, the woman quickly asks if he managed to discover any new or useful information during his time inside. With a blunt and visibly disappointed expression, the man simply replies that he found nothing at all, leaving their current search for answers at a complete and frustrating standstill. Frustrated by the complete lack of progress, the female agent yells at her colleagues, demanding to know how it is possible that they haven't uncovered a single lead despite their extensive search. The black-haired agent scoffs at the very mention of the word info, clearly exhausted and overwhelmed by the impossible task of tracking targets who have effectively dropped off the face of the earth. He collapses heavily into a nearby chair in a fit of exasperation, shouting that the fact that both Imugi and Dakibai vanished without leaving a trace is driving him to the brink of insanity. With a look of total defeat, he explains that he even went as far as meeting with all of his contacts in Korea, but absolutely no one has heard a single word regarding their current whereabouts. The investigation into the missing fugitives reaches a frustrating standstill as the agents contemplate the possibility that their targets have fled the country entirely. While the male agent tries to get her attention, Miss Key remains focused on the grim reality of their empty lead. Exasperated by the lack of progress and the tedious desk work, the male agent leans back in his chair and expresses a restless desire for action. He pleads with Miss Key to simply let him go out and settle the score with Duokshiny in another physical confrontation. Miss Key immediately shuts down the request, firmly stating that unauthorized brawling is strictly off-limits. She reasserts her professional duty and authority, pointedly asking her partner if he has forgotten that she is a police officer who must uphold the law. Despite the stern warning, the agent's restlessness remains unquenched as he dramatically laments his boredom in the safe house. He continues to complain loudly to his colleagues, making it very clear to everyone in the room that he is dying for a brawl, rather than sitting around analyzing surveillance photos. Miss Key contemplates the heavy requirements for taking down a powerful adversary, noting that confronting such a giant requires an equally massive justification to succeed. Her train of thought is interrupted by a suited subordinate who arrives with an unexpected announcement, informing her that a mysterious woman has arrived and is requesting an immediate audience. Struck by a wave of sudden disbelief, Miss Key's eyes widen in shock as she repeats the visitor's gender to herself, clearly not expecting a female contact at this critical moment. The mysterious visitor makes a grand entrance, appearing as an elegant blonde woman in sunglasses carrying a small, panting dog. Accompanied by her own security, she exudes an air of wealth and confidence as she steps into the room to meet Miss Key. In a dimly lit office, Miss Key and the mysterious visitor sit across from one another to begin their conversation. Miss Key leads the meeting by formally asking the woman exactly what has brought her to the safe house. The blonde woman acknowledges that her arrival was improper, admitting that she should have called ahead to make an appointment. She offers a polite apology for dropping by unannounced and disrupting the task force's operations. Despite the lack of a prior warning, the visitor makes her intentions clear. She looks directly at Miss Key and states that the reason for her sudden visit is to offer her assistance with the ongoing situation. Miss Key remains skeptical and focused, wasting no time on pleasantries. She looks intently at the stranger and asks a blunt follow-up question, demanding to know exactly how this woman thinks she can help them. The mysterious blonde visitor reveals that she is well aware of the task force's long-standing struggle to track down the Yacha gang. She correctly assumes that Miss Key has already uncovered the secret, high-level connection between the gang and Master Emuga's powerful conglomerate. Miss Key and her partner are instantly gripped by shock at the stranger's intimate knowledge of their classified work. Gasping in disbelief, Miss Key demands to know how the woman could possibly be privy to such sensitive information regarding their internal investigation. The visitor continues to expose the task force's frustrations, comparing their investigation to a maze where every report filed leads to a dead end. She describes how all their hard work has been fruitless, leaving them feeling as though they are constantly wandering in circles and returning to where they started. She explains that their lack of progress is no accident, but the result of a deliberate plan. She reveals that a powerful force is operating from the shadows, actively working to divert their attention and neutralize every effort they make to solve the case. The blonde visitor reveals a small data chip, claiming it contains comprehensive evidence of Master Emuga's vast influence. She explains that she now possesses proof of his deep-rooted connections across the political, financial, and media sectors. Miss Key and her partner are completely stunned by the revelation, their faces drenched in sweat as they process the magnitude of the information. The sudden appearance of such critical intelligence leaves the agents in a state of absolute shock. The scene shifts back to the high-security environment of the school. The focus settles on the heavy, industrial doors leading to Tabasa's private quarters located in Section C13. Inside the room, Tabasa sits alone and heavily bandaged, her eyes reflecting a profound sense of exhaustion. After the recent violence, she remains in isolation, recovering from her significant physical injuries. Standing in the room where Tabasa is recovering from her injuries, Haseon asks her for clarification on the facility's rules. He questions whether or not she actually has the ability to negotiate with the guards to improve their current situation. Tabasa looks away with a serious expression and explains the hierarchy of the system. She reveals that officially, she doesn't have that kind of power, as the authority to speak with the guards is a privilege reserved strictly for the class leader. Noting that they currently lack a leader after the recent chaos, Haseon looks toward his allies and proposes a pragmatic solution. He suggests that since the position is vacant, they should simply elect a new class leader to act as their representative. The swordsman rubs his chin and falls into deep thought as he considers the proposal. He repeats the idea to himself, wondering if installing a new leader is the key to successfully navigating the system and securing their safety. Suddenly, the spiky-haired swordsman wraps his arm firmly around Haseon's shoulder, pulling him close to make a major announcement to the rest of the group. With a confident grin, he points forward and declares that he has chosen Haseon to be the new leader of Class 13, leaving the young man completely blindsided and gasping in disbelief. Haseon immediately protests the decision, looking at his ally with a shocked expression. He argues that the swordsman should take the position himself, as he is clearly the strongest individual among them. Rejecting the idea with a carefree laugh, The swordsman pats Haseon on the back and explains that he is not fit to be a leader. He admits that his own personality is far too hot-headed to handle the responsibilities of command. Haseon reacts with visible distress and heavy sweating as he firmly rejects the label of being a vagrant. He is clearly rattled by the accusation, desperately asserting his true identity as a human being to those around him. The blonde woman watches Haseon with a neutral but serious expression, neither confirming nor denying his outburst. A long, tense silence falls between the two as they stand in the dimly lit corridor, weighing the weight of his words. Sitting alone and covered in fresh bandages, Tsubasa decides to speak up. She tells Haseon that since he made the choice to spare her life, she feels obligated to offer him some crucial advice regarding his current situation. Turning with a look of grim warning, Tsubasa explains that the situation has completely spiraled out of control. She cautions him that the facility's guards are guaranteed to seek retribution for the recent chaos and will make sure he pays a heavy price. Haseon and his companion are struck by a wave of pure shock, their faces etched with alarm as they process a startling piece of news. The revelation leaves them breathless, forced to confront a reality that is far more dangerous than they initially anticipated. Tsubasa provides a cynical insight into the facility's operations, warning that the guards rarely handle their own problems directly. She predicts that the authorities will likely weaponize another class to hunt them down, outsourcing the violence to avoid getting their own hands dirty. Looking down a cold, empty corridor, the group begins to question the nature of the other prisoners. They reflect on their own standing within the facility, acknowledging the grim fact that Class 13 is viewed as the absolute lowest tier in the building's hierarchy. A violent explosion of energy underscores the desperate reputation of their class. They are characterized as the mere leftovers and vagrants of the system, people who belonged nowhere else and were discarded into the bottom level of the facility to fight for survival. The spiky-haired warrior is visibly dejected and deeply offended after hearing his class described as nothing more than the facility's leftovers. He slumps his shoulders in a dramatic display of disappointment, struggling to accept the low status given to his people. Snapping out of his brief moment of despair, he draws his glowing, energy-infused sword with a fierce and aggressive expression. He mocks the insult he just received, threatening to show exactly what a leftover weapon is capable of doing to an opponent. The tension in the room shifts instantly as a sudden, alarming disturbance catches the entire group off guard. Haseon and his allies freeze in place, their faces etched with pure shock as they witness something unexpected and dangerous approaching their position. Sensing the imminent threat, the warrior gasps in realization and braces himself for a fight. He urgently questions if the enemy forces have already launched their offensive, fearing that the war they were preparing for has arrived much sooner than they anticipated. A massive cloud of dust and debris billows across the room with a violent hiss, signaling the aftermath of a powerful breach that has completely shattered the surrounding environment. From within the thick haze, Gunther emerges at the head of a group of shadowy, glowing-eyed figures. Their sudden appearance carries an overwhelming sense of dread as they loom forward through the swirling smoke in a menacing formation. The survivors are instantly thrown into a state of panic and confusion. Amidst the clamor and murmurs, they desperately try to identify the intruders before realizing with horror that they are face to face with the elite forces of Class 11. Maintaining a slow and steady pace, the newcomers continue their deliberate advance into the area. Each heavy step echoes through the tense silence, marking a relentless approach that signals the beginning of a new and far more dangerous confrontation. With a look of grim resolve, the silver-haired leader addresses his comrades with a heavy sense of purpose. He calls out to them as his brothers, his voice carrying the weight of their shared struggle as they prepare to face their enemies. Gunther leads the charge with a powerful, ground-shaking stomp, his face contorted in a ferocious roar. He declares that it is finally time for payback, with massive, shadowy figures looming behind him as they advance toward the conflict. Whipping his arm forward in a commanding gesture, Gunther issues a final, ruthless order to his class. He shouts for them to unleash their full power and demands that no one hold back as they initiate their brutal assault. A violent and chaotic brawl erupts instantly as the forces collide with devastating impact. The air is filled with the sounds of bone-crushing blows and pain screams as warriors are sent tumbling through the air in the wake of the overwhelming attack. A massive, red-eyed titan dominates the battlefield, delivering a series of bone-shattering strikes that send his opponents reeling. As he effortlessly pummels them, he sneers with absolute contempt, demanding to know why they still haven't realized how completely outmatched they are in this fight. Without showing a single shred of mercy, the powerhouse warrior follows up with another thunderous punch that connects with brutal precision. He bellows at his enemies, referring to them as nothing more than useless worms who are unworthy of even standing on the same ground as him. The giant's fury reaches a fever pitch, his glowing red eyes radiating pure malice as his face contorts in a terrifying mask of rage. He lets out a guttural, earth-shaking roar, ordering a total massacre and insisting that everyone in their path should be crushed into the dirt like common bugs. The scene reaches a terrifying climax as a massive boot descends with incredible speed toward a defenseless boy with white hair. Lying helpless on the floor, the boy can only stare up in paralyzed horror as the enormous shadow of his impending doom looms over him, signaling a final, violent end. The tension in the room reaches a breaking point as one of the fighters experiences a moment of profound, wide-eyed shock. The silence of shock is instantly shattered by a brutal and decisive act of violence as a gleaming sword slices through the air with lethal precision. Refusing to be intimidated by the sudden bloodshed, the survivors of Class 13 gather their resolve and stand their ground in a defiant defensive formation. The full scale of the threat is finally revealed as the elite members of Class 11 emerge with an aura of overwhelming power and menace. Lucas volunteers to handle the opponent, and his boss gives him the go-ahead to have fun. The boss orders Lucas to rip their enemies to shreds as he prepares for combat. Lucas charges forward, delivering a powerful stomp that shatters the ground beneath him. Finally, the boss commands him to slay their enemy and put their fallen brothers to rest. Lucas stomps toward the group, sending them into a state of pure panic. He reveals himself as a terrifying beast vagrant, towering over his targets with a roar. One of the survivors is struck with realization as he finally understands what they are up against. Lucas huffs aggressively, ready to tear into his helpless opponents. One of the group members asks the class leader if he should be the first to step up and fight. However, another student steps forward and declines the offer. He stares down their monstrous opponent and declares that the beast is his to handle. Meanwhile, the beast vagrant lets out a deafening roar as it launches into a charge. The student leaps into the fray, charging head-on toward the rampaging beast vagrant. An onlooker mocks the student, calling him an idiot for trying to face Lucas's charge directly. They collide with a massive impact, and the student struggles with all his might against the monster. The sheer force of the collision shatters the environment, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Straining under the pressure, the student taunts the beast, asking if that's really all the power it has. He digs his heels into the ground with a loud grind, meeting the monster's overwhelming force with his own brute strength. In a shocking display of power, he stands firm and successfully brings the beast's massive charge to a complete halt. Lucas is left speechless and stunned, unable to believe that his attack has been stopped dead in its tracks. The student reaches out and firmly grabs the monster by its tusk. Letting out a roar of pure effort, he channels all his strength into the grapple. With a sudden, violent motion, he snaps the beast's tusk right off. He follows through by slamming the monster back, leaving it wounded and reeling from the impact. Lucas huffs in pain, shocked that the student actually managed to break off one of his tusks. Despite the clear injury, the student is wary, noting that the beast still seems completely fine and ready to fight. Lucas demands to know where the Dampier is hiding, declaring that their mission is meaningless until that target is dead. The student stands his ground, telling the monster it will have to get past him before it can go looking for anyone else. Lucas lunges forward in a rage, hurling insults as he launches another charge. The student groans under the pressure, vowing that he must win this fight at all costs. He successfully blocks the beast's massive strike, determined to protect and help his friends. Lucas mockingly questions his confidence as he prepares a swift counterattack. Suddenly, Yiwung is caught off guard as a lethal blow impales him straight through the chest. He cries out in agony, coughing up blood from the devastating impact of the sneak attack. His classmates watch in complete shock and horror, screaming out Yiwung's name. Lucas pulls away from the strike, leaving his opponent collapsed and severely wounded on the battlefield. Yiwung hits the ground with a heavy thud, completely incapacitated by the lethal blow. He clutches his chest in agony as blood continues to gush from the deep wound. Overcome with guilt, he apologizes to his comrades and laments over his own perceived weakness. Tearfully, he confesses that his only desire was to be strong enough to help his friends. A mysterious hand reaches out to a fallen Yiwung, commanding him to get back up. Lita appears in a vision, telling him not to give up yet and calling him the most sincere of them all. She urges him to finally believe in himself as much as his friends already do. Empowered by her words, Yiwung erupts with a massive surge of strength that shocks everyone around him. Yiwung experiences a sudden surge of power, realizing he has finally crossed the threshold to become a true vagrant. Lucas mocks the moment and charges back in, declaring there's no room for sentiment during a real fight. However, Yiwung counters with a devastating punch that smacks the beast vagrant squarely in the face. The massive impact sends the monster spiraling backward, ending his aggressive charge in an instant. Yiwung swings a massive stony fist through the air with overwhelming speed. He connects with a heavy blow, showcasing a terrifying new level of physical power. His transformation is fully revealed, as his entire body has now turned into solid stone. With a fierce roar, he slams his strength down and causes a massive burst of destruction. Suddenly, massive stone hands shoot out from the ground and ensnare Lucas, trapping him in place. Caught off guard by the sudden trap, Lucas's eye twitches in shock as he realizes he has been caught. Now completely restrained, the beast vagrant shouts in utter disbelief, unable to fathom how he was overtaken. Finally, Yiwung whips around in his powerful stone form and bellows a mighty battle cry. A student with glowing blue eyes leaps into the air to join the battle. He uses Yiwung's stone body as a springboard to propel himself toward the enemy. With a fierce battle cry, he brings his blade down in a swift, vertical strike. The sword slices through the air and makes a clean hit against the target. Robert is baffled to find his sword has stopped short and won't cut any deeper into his target. Lucas shouts in alarm as he realizes Robert's attack has impaled his own ally. The ally grits his teeth in silent agony, enduring the devastating wound. Lucas groans with frustration, demanding to know why his comrade jumped in the way. One of Lucas's allies vows not to let him die alone, showing his steadfast loyalty. He releases a powerful blast with a fierce roar, knocking back his opponent in the explosion. His muscles bulge and crackle with intense blue energy as he pushes his physical limits. Finally, his hands transform into deadly claws as his monstrous power continues to surge. The beast identifies the student as the knife boy responsible for destroying C-12. A massive bear vagrant towers over the small opponent and lets out a thunderous roar. The student's blade pulses with a dark aura as he prepares to strike back. Unfazed, he remarks that he has already taken down several bears just like this one. Arriving at a dark parking lot, a tired investigator lets out a weary yawn. Her partner questions if she is certain they are in the right place. She confirms she is 100% sure because they have tapped the phones. Identifying Cho Young-tae, a representative of the ruling party, the investigators discuss his rise to power. She explains that a 10-year plan by Amugi turned the failing politician into a single-party representative. They conclude the Yacha gang is meeting him to provide illegal funding. Hearing a car approach, they realize their target has finally arrived. From their vehicle, the investigators observe Young of the Yacha gang and Cho Young-tae, noting a familiar-looking bodyguard. Her partner asks if they should attack now, but she tells him no. She insists they need to collect evidence first and prepares her phone to take photos. Just as they are about to capture proof, a phone suddenly begins to ring. The bodyguard's keen hearing picks up a suspicious noise nearby. He grins, remarking that he hears some rats making noise in the area. Charging a dark power in his hand, he notes that there is a best way to catch a rat. He suddenly unleashes a violent strike, declaring that this is how it's done. The investigators are stunned when the bodyguard suddenly snatches the phone from their grasp. He swiftly retracts his arm, moving back toward Cho Young-tae. With immense strength, he crushes the phone, destroying the evidence they collected. He smirks, mockingly apologizing for destroying what must have been important information. The shocked investigators curse their luck, having failed to anticipate that Cho Young-tae would have a powerful vagrant protecting him. Panic-stricken, the politician is hurriedly led away by his associates, who promise to keep him safe. The group makes a frantic dash for a building entrance, desperate to escape the scene. Staying behind, the bodyguard prepares to confront the investigators, stretching out his mutated limb to block their path. The bodyguard taunts the investigators, shouting for them to come out and play. Her partner is shocked to see the man's arm extend like a rubber band, asking if she has ever seen someone like him before. She admits it's her first time encountering someone with such abilities as the villain smashes through their cover. Letting out a scream, she narrowly avoids a devastating blow as his massive arm crushes the car. Amidst the debris of their destroyed vehicle, the male investigator struggles to regain his footing. He narrowly survives a follow-up strike, ducking just as the bodyguard's massive, elongated arm smashes into a concrete pillar. Shocked by the proximity of the mutated limb, he realizes the terrifying speed and power of their opponent. Shaking off the fear, he finds an opening and makes a determined dash forward to confront the threat. Leaping into action, the male investigator agilely dodges a devastating swing from the bodyguard's massive arm. He delivers a precise counterattack that catches the villain off guard, leaving him reeling and coughing up blood. Landing smoothly, the investigator maintains his focus as the dust settles from the impact. Sensing a temporary opening, he prepares to press his advantage against the stunned opponent. Recognizing his opponent, the bodyguard asks if he is Gumiho, noting he's heard much about him. The investigator identifies the bodyguard as Yoon Juho, a judo silver medalist from the Asian Games. He calls out the unfairness of a vagrant competing in sports, but Juho merely smirks through his injuries. Juho retorts that after living such a long life, he has to find ways to keep himself entertained. The investigator asks if stopping at a silver medal was Juho's way of being fair. Juho chuckles, retorting that only humans care about such things. He reveals that the gold medalist actually paid him to lose the competition. Launching a swift attack, Juho catches his opponent with a powerful strike from his mutated limb. Juho predicts Gumiho's next move, exclaiming that he knew exactly what his opponent would do. Exploiting the opening, he grabs the investigator by the head with his massive, mutated hand. With overwhelming power, Juho slams him into the pavement with a bone-shattering force. He then flings his dazed opponent across the lot, sending him crashing into several parked cars. After being thrown across the lot, Gumiho sits dazed amidst the debris. He struggles to catch his breath, clearly pained by the brutal assault. Juho doesn't give him a moment's rest, stretching his arm to deliver another powerful strike. Leaping into the air, Juho taunts him with a bye-bye as he prepares to finish the fight. Gumiho realizes that keeping his distance from the powerful bodyguard will be a difficult challenge. Deciding to escalate, he ignites his hand to see if fire play can settle the game. He unleashes a devastating fire claw technique, swiping through the air with a massive blaze. The bodyguard reacts in total shock, unable to believe his opponent is actually using fire. The intense heat from Gumiho's fire technique triggers the overhead sprinkler system, causing it to burst. High-pressure water sprays throughout the parking garage, creating a sudden indoor downpour. The torrential spray instantly douses the flames, leaving Gumiho's hand hissing with steam as his power is extinguished. Completely drenched, a stunned Gumiho can only curse his terrible luck as his main advantage washes away. Juho laughs hysterically, mockingly calling the drenched investigator a poor fox in the rain. Steam rising from his body, Gumiho admits he never saw the sprinkler system intervention coming. Elsewhere, the sound of heavy breathing echoes through a large, empty auditorium. A group of young men is suddenly confronted by a formidable presence, leaving them gasping in shock. Facing a massive bear monster, a swordsman grows frustrated as his attacks prove completely ineffective. He demands to know why it won't die, while the beast looms over him with glowing blue eyes. The monster mockingly taunts him, asking if he is holding a sword or just a toothpick. Distracted, the fighter glances back as two mysterious figures suddenly appear behind him. A mysterious figure admits he didn't want to use his hidden power yet, but feels he has no choice. He begins to channel energy through his blade, causing a strange mist to swirl around the hilt. His eyes flash with a brilliant light as he fully unleashes his latent abilities. With a massive burst of energy, he stands ready, his entire form radiating power. A monstrous beast looms over a terrified young woman, its red eyes glowing with malice. Unleashing his latent power, the blue-eyed warrior strikes downward with his blade, cursing the damn bear. His energy-infused sword hits with incredible force, shattering the ground beneath the impact. With a final, powerful slash, he tears through the creature, ending the battle in a spray of dark blood. The beast lets out a pained roar as black blood splatters the air. With a heavy thud, the massive creature collapses to the ground. The determined warrior tells the monster to say goodbye to its skull. He leaps for a final strike, declaring the head is coming off as he delivers a powerful slash. A hand wrapped tightly in bandages slams against the cold stone wall with a heavy smack. The impact is desperate, as if using the structure itself to keep from collapsing. Despite the visible injuries, there is a clear sense of urgency in the movement, showing a character who is pushing past their physical limits. The woman grits her teeth, her expression twisted in a mask of pure agony. Sweat beads on her forehead as she stares ahead with intensity, her pale eyes reflecting both pain and determination. Every breath seems like a struggle, yet she refuses to let the exhaustion take over. Leaning heavily against the wall for support, she lets out a pained groan. Her body is a map of trauma, with bandages covering her arms, torso, and shoulders. She stands shakily in the dim light, barely able to keep her footing as she forces herself to navigate the corridor despite her debilitated state. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by the sounds of a violent commotion echoing from a distance. The air is filled with the cacophony of crashing, thudding, and agonizing screams coming from around the corner. She pauses, looking toward the source of the chaos, and wonders to herself, is it over there? Peeking around the corner with a worried expression, the injured woman observes the chaos unfolding just ahead of her. Seeing the sheer scale of the violence, she realizes her current state makes her a liability. She mutters to herself that she might have to book it out of there to survive. In the middle of the fray, a warrior prepares a devastating blow. His face is a mask of intense focus as he lands a heavy strike, fueled by pure adrenaline. He yells out a grim warning to his target, telling them to say bye to their skull as he commits everything to the attack. He immediately follows up with a massive overhead slash directed at a giant, white-furred beast. The force of the swing creates a visible arc of energy in the air. Confident in the power behind his blade, he shouts that it's coming off, intending to sever his opponent with one final, brutal move. The battle reaches a fever pitch as the creature reacts with primal instinct. Despite the heavy damage it's taking, the beast lunges forward with a sudden, vicious chomp. The air is filled with the sound of snapping jaws as the creature bites back, turning the encounter into a desperate struggle for survival. Disbelief washes over the man as he realizes his attack has failed to end the encounter. His body shakes with a mixture of exhaustion and terror, his face dripping with sweat as the reality of the situation sets in. Staring at the monster before him, he can only exclaim in shock, "You've got to be kidding me!" The monstrous white beast responds with a terrifying display of strength, catching the man's blade directly in its massive jaws. With a guttural growl, the creature bites down with immense force. A sickening crunch echoes through the air as the beast's teeth sink into the metal, proving that a simple weapon is no match for its primal power. The tension reaches a breaking point as the man's weapon completely shatters against the creature's iron-hard head. Shards of the blade explode outward in a spray of light and steel, leaving the warrior defenseless. The sound of the weapon splintering signals a disastrous turn in the battle, leaving him wide open for a counterattack. The scene descends into pure carnage as a towering figure enters the fray, unleashing a brutal slash while shouting for his enemies to die. He ruthlessly pins a victim to the ground beneath his foot, ignoring their agonized screams. Watching from the shadows, the injured woman is frozen in horror as she witnesses the overwhelming violence unfolding before her. A brutal strike cuts through the air, delivering a lethal slice to a man caught in the crossfire. He lets out a strangled cry as the blade connects with terrifying precision. The suddenness of the attack leaves him no time to react, highlighting the sheer ruthlessness of the combat taking place in the corridor. Surveying the carnage from her position, the woman is struck by the absolute horror of the scene. She gasps for air, her eyes wide with shock as she takes in the mounting body count and the scent of blood. Overwhelmed by the devastation, she can only describe the area as a total slaughterhouse. The intensity of the battle shows no signs of slowing down as another heavy impact shatters the silence with a loud bam. The force of the collision sends sparks and debris flying, indicating a high-level exchange of power. Every movement in the fray is designed to kill, leaving the environment in ruins as the clash continues. In the midst of the chaos, a young man pauses to catch his breath, his chest heaving from the exertion. His focus shifts when he spots a familiar figure nearby, his expression turning from exhaustion to pure confusion. Staring at her, he wonders to himself what Tabasa is doing in such a dangerous place. A massive, brown-furred beast lunges from the shadows, its jaws wide and teeth bared in a deafening roar. The young man is caught completely off guard, letting out a sharp gasp as the creature's presence looms over him. The proximity of the monster highlights the immediate danger he is in, leaving him with only a fraction of a second to react. Fighting back the panic, the boy retaliates with a powerful strike that connects with a heavy wham. Despite landing a solid blow, he is quickly overwhelmed by the sheer volume of enemies closing in on his position. Looking at the pack of various monstrous hybrids surrounding him, he realizes the gravity of the situation and grumbles that there's no end to these guys. Across the chaotic battlefield, a mysterious long-haired man stands guarded by a group of formidable, humanoid beasts. The boy identifies this individual as the primary threat, understanding that the carnage might end if he can manage to take him down. However, with a wall of elite monsters standing in his path, he acknowledges that reaching the leader won't be easy. Before he can even formulate a plan, another black, wolf-like beast strikes with incredible speed. It lets out a feral scream as it closes the distance in a blur of motion. The boy is frozen in terror as the creature's snapping jaws come inches from his face, turning the encounter into a frantic and desperate struggle for survival against an unrelenting tide of predators. A massive, gray-furred beast pins a man to the ground, its glowing red eyes and saliva-covered fangs centimeters from his face. Despite the life-threatening situation, a plan is hatched amidst the chaos. The group realizes they have a tactical advantage, exclaiming that they can use Tabasa as the key to reaching their primary target. Tabasa is caught completely off guard by the suggestion. Her expression shifts to one of pure shock and confusion as she processes the idea of being used in such a dangerous gambit. She stares back blankly, questioning her role in the strategy with a startled, "Me." Suddenly, a muscular hand wreathed in a faint, ominous aura reaches out and delivers a brutal squeeze. The grip is firm and authoritative, asserting dominance over a victim as dark energy pulses through the assailant's arm. This display of raw power emphasizes the ruthless nature of the combatants involved in the struggle. The aftermath of the clash is a grim scene of devastation. Several bodies lie motionless on the ground, surrounded by a thick, hissing mist that fills the air with a fshhh sound. Towering monsters stand victoriously over the fallen, their shadows looming large in the wreckage as the slaughter continues unabated. Standing amidst the wreckage, the long-haired leader calmly observes the carnage, confident that the battle will be over soon. Despite his success in destroying Dampier's class, he finds the lack of resistance unsettling. He narrows his eyes in thought, questioning why his primary target hasn't shown up to defend his people yet. The leader's initial confidence quickly shifts into a growing sense of unease as he scans the area for any sign of a hidden trap. He senses that something is wrong with the flow of the battle, noting that the situation smells fishy. He remains on high alert, realizing that the silence from his enemy might be a precursor to a dangerous counterattack. The heavy silence is suddenly broken by a frantic warning that echoes through the corridor. The boar beast guard snaps its head around in shock, its red eyes widening as the words, "Behind you," ring out. The warning comes a split second too late, as a new threat reveals itself from the blind spot of the enemy pack. In a blur of motion and purple light, a figure descends from above with a sharp F-wish sound, catching the entire group off guard. A command to "get down" is shouted as the attacker strikes right at the heart of the enemy formation. The sudden ambush catches the leader and his guards by surprise, instantly shifting the momentum of the slaughter. Descending rapidly from the sky with a loud F-whoosh, the boy carries Tabasa into the heart of the fray. He seems to enjoy the tactical advantage of the height, laughing as his eyes glow with a bright, blue energy. He remarks that it feels nice to be up in the air for once, using the momentum of his fall to power up a devastating counterattack. Without hesitation, he focuses all his energy into a single, concentrated punch. The air whooshes around his fist as he thrusts it forward, moving with a speed that catches the enemy completely off guard. The glowing aura surrounding his hand intensifies, signaling the sheer force he is about to unleash upon the unsuspecting leader. The blow connects squarely with the long-haired man's face with a violent wham. The impact is brutal, snapping the leader's head back and shattering his calm composure. Grit and debris fly in every direction as the man winces in pure agony, his face contorting under the immense pressure of the boy's unexpected and powerful strike. The force of the impact sends the leader staggering backward, his body nearly collapsing as he struggles to maintain his balance. The surrounding beasts watch in stunned silence as their once confident master is forced onto the defensive. With the momentum of the battle firmly shifted, the boy lands on the ground, ready to continue the fight. The boy leaps high into the air, unleashing a lethal barrage of purple glowing daggers that rain down with a sharp P-whoosh. The coordinated assault strikes with pinpoint accuracy, slamming into the silver-haired leader. The force of the impact is overwhelming, forcing a pained HRGH from the man as he is driven into the floor. Lying defeated on the ground, the leader coughs up blood, his composure completely shattered. He stares upward in a daze, his mind racing to process the sudden defeat. Overwhelmed by the boy's unexpected display of power, he can only wonder to himself in shock. How did they do that? The sight of their fallen commander sends the beast-like guards into a frenzy of panic and disbelief. Both the boar beast and the wolf hybrid stare wide-eyed at the wreckage, their faces twisted in terror. They scream out for their boss, realizing that the overwhelming advantage they once held has vanished in an instant. Seizing control of the situation, a hand raises a sharp kunai that glints with a metallic shing. The air grows heavy as the victor prepares to deliver his final terms to the remaining enemies. With the battlefield falling silent, he issues a stern command to everyone present, telling them to listen up. With his knee pressed firmly against the silver-haired leader's chest, the boy holds a sharp blade directly to the man's throat. The cold steel glints dangerously as he issues a final, lethal ultimatum to the remaining enemy forces. He commands them all to stop fighting immediately, warning that if they take another step, their class leader is dead. The standoff looms over the battlefield, casting long shadows across the debris-filled corridor. Despite being surrounded by monstrous hybrids, the boy maintains his grip, effectively paralyzing the enemy's momentum. The once chaotic slaughterhouse falls into a heavy, suffocating silence as the realization of their commander's situation sinks in for the attackers. The beast-like guards are consumed by a mixture of panic and pure hatred. Their eyes glow with feral intensity as they growl at the boy, unable to retaliate without risking their master's life. Frustrated and helpless, they scream out for their boss while cursing the boy, calling him and his allies damn bastards for turning the tables so ruthlessly. Unexpectedly, the silver-haired leader shows no fear even with a blade centimeters from his skin. Instead, he lets out a jagged breath and looks up at the boy with a mocking, defiant smirk. He challenges the boy's resolve and his ability to follow through with the kill, calmly and chillingly telling him to stab me. The boy freezes in shock as he feels a sudden, unsettling twitch from the man beneath his blade. The power dynamic shifts instantly, leaving him sweating and confused as he realizes his leverage is slipping away. Staring down in disbelief, he can only mutter a startled, "Huh," as the situation takes a dangerous turn. Violent blue lightning begins to crackle around the leader's hand with a deafening krrrk. The sheer intensity of the energy surges through the air, making it clear that the man isn't intimidated by the weapon at his throat. He mocks the boy's attempt at a threat, claiming that he won't even feel the effects of the boy's actions. The leader's electrical aura expands with overwhelming force, appearing to rip and tear through the very atmosphere. He continues his taunt, dismissively referring to the boy's blade as nothing more than a little toy. The pressure radiating from his body becomes unbearable, signaling that the hostage situation has been completely overturned by his raw power. Overwhelmed by the sudden explosion of energy, the boy gasps in pure terror as the lightning surges around him. He is paralyzed by the sight of the monster he thought he had defeated now towering over him with renewed strength. In a final, desperate moment of panic, he can only scream out for the man to stop it. The silver-haired leader lets out a guttural growl as his features begin to distort into something primal. A sharp snap echoes through the air, signaling that the last of his restraint has finally broken. With his teeth bared in a feral snarl and electrical energy crackling around him, it becomes clear that the hostage situation has ignited a transformation far more dangerous than anyone expected. Refusing to be intimidated, the boy follows through on his ultimatum, driving his blade downward with a sickening SHLNK. His eyes glow with a cold, intense blue light as he shouts, "I warned you." He commits fully to the strike, attempting to end the threat once and for all before the leader's power can fully manifest. But the blow doesn't have the intended effect. The retaliation is instantaneous and violent. A massive surge of electrical energy erupts from the leader, hitting the boy with a powerful PZZT that throws him backward. He lets out an agonized "Gah" as the raw force of the discharge overwhelms him. forcing him to lose his grip and struggle to stay upright against the blinding aura of power radiating from his opponent. The air explodes with a dark red energy as a towering, monstrous figure emerges with a deafening effwoom. A massive, muscular werewolf now stands where the leader once was, its presence accompanied by an ominous da-dun that signals a complete shift in the battle. The boy is left frozen in shock, staring up at the colossal predator that has completely eclipsed his own strength. The white-furred werewolf catches the boy's dagger effortlessly between its massive claws. Its red eyes glow with predatory malice as it mocks the protagonist's desperate attempt to end the fight. Looking down with pure arrogance, the creature asks if the boy truly believed such a small weapon was capable of killing a monster of its caliber. With a dismissive flick of its wrist, the creature tosses the dagger aside, letting it fall to the floor with a hollow tink. It stands tall, completely unharmed by the strike that should have been lethal. The werewolf taunts the boy one last time, coldly telling him nice try as it demonstrates just how ineffective his best efforts really were. The protagonist gasps for air, his face pale with shock as he looks up at the towering predator. The true scale of the leader's transformation finally sinks in, leaving the boy feeling small and helpless. Overwhelmed by the creature's massive size and the suffocating pressure of its aura, he can only think to himself, he's huge. The werewolf lets out a guttural, bone-chilling growl that echoes through the dark corridor. It looms over the boy, trapping him in its shadow and leaving him with no room to escape. What began as a hostage situation has evolved into a nightmare, with the boy now standing face to face with an unstoppable beast. A bald fighter lunges forward with a fierce battle cry, his face contorted with the effort of the charge. He uses the full momentum of his descent to launch a heavy physical strike, signaling a brutal turn in the close-quarters combat. His eyes are wide with intensity as he commits everything to this opening move. The attacker follows through with a devastating body slam, pinning his opponent to the floor with a massive smash. The sheer weight and force behind the move leave no room for escape, turning the hard ground into a crushing trap. The environment itself seems to buckle under the impact of the violent collision. Caught in the center of the impact, the black-haired man lets out a pained groan as his head is driven into the floor. The shock of the blow leaves him dazed and struggling to maintain consciousness as the agony radiates through his entire frame. He is left completely vulnerable, his defenses shattered by the overwhelming power of the slam. Before he can even attempt to recover, his opponent's large, powerful hands reach down and grab him firmly by the clothing. He is held down against the wreckage in a vice-like grip that ensures he cannot retreat or reposition. The struggle becomes a desperate test of endurance as he remains trapped beneath the crushing weight of his assailant. The muscular attacker seizes the man by the throat, lifting him completely off the floor. Despite the victim's desperate wriggling and flailing, the grip remains unshakable. The man can only let out a pained HRGH as he struggles fruitlessly to break free from the massive hand pinning him in mid-air. Fueled by pure aggression, the large man lets out a thunderous Rana. His expression is a mask of savage intensity, signaling that he is finished with the hold and is preparing to use the man's own body as a projectile to end the exchange. In a single, fluid motion, he flings his opponent across the room with incredible force. The man is sent sailing through the air in a swoosh of movement, becoming a blur of motion as he is tossed like a rag doll. He is left completely unable to regain his footing as the sheer momentum of the throw carries him toward the edge of the arena. The flight comes to a violent conclusion as the man crashes into a metal structure with a resonant bam. The impact is so severe that it triggers a visible burst of debris and energy, leaving the victim crumpled against the wreckage. The brutal display of strength effectively neutralizes the target, ending the struggle in an instant. The muscular man flashes a wicked grin as red energy begins to crackle and smoke around his hand. His fingers snap with a sharp crack, signaling that he is done playing games. Looking directly at his struggling opponent, he menacingly declares that it is time to wrap the fight up for good. Standing tall in the B2 parking level, the fighter notices a sudden change in the atmosphere. The heavy spray of water from above abruptly stops, leaving the area in a damp silence. He glances around casually, noting to himself that it looks like the sprinklers have finally shut off. Before the other man can even attempt to stand, the assailant delivers a brutal, heavy kick. The impact connects with a violent wham, the force of the strike clearly intended to break his opponent's resolve. The power imbalance is obvious as the muscular fighter continues his relentless physical assault. Bursting into a sadistic laugh, the man taunts his gasping target with a mocking request. He asks if the man would mind turning the sprinklers back on, jokingly complaining that it is still far too hot in the room. He remains completely unfazed by the carnage, clearly enjoying the one-sided nature of the encounter. Despite the physical toll of the battle, the black-haired man begins to chuckle softly to himself. He looks down with a calm, almost sinister confidence, seemingly unfazed by the punishment he has endured. His quiet laughter fills the tense air, signaling to his opponent that he still has a final card to play. The muscular fighter responds with a wide, mocking smirk, convinced that his victory is absolute. He stares down at the man with pure arrogance, questioning his sanity after such a brutal beating. He taunts the fallen warrior, asking if he's actually laughing, or if the intensity of the fight has finally caused him to lose a few screws. The black-haired man finally looks up, his gaze sharpening with a chilling and knowing intensity. He doesn't attempt to strike back physically. Instead, he delivers a cryptic and ominous warning that shifts the tone of the encounter. He calmly tells his opponent that he should be careful of cars, hinting at an external threat that is rapidly approaching. The atmosphere shifts instantly as a sudden, bright light catches the muscular man's attention. His expression of arrogance vanishes, replaced by an eye wide with pure shock and realization. Caught completely off guard by the danger he neglected to notice, he can only mutter a startled, "Huh," as the situation turns violently against him. The roar of a high-powered engine suddenly shatters the silence as a vehicle vrooms into the frame. Its headlights are blindingly bright, casting long, sharp shadows and pinning the muscular fighter right where he stands. The warning he was just given becomes a terrifying reality as the massive tires churn toward him at high speed. The vehicle zooms forward with lethal momentum, closing the distance in a fraction of a second. It barrels through the dark corridor like a juggernaut, its speed making evasion completely impossible for anyone caught in its path. The once dominant fighter is reduced to a small silhouette against the overwhelming force of the oncoming machine. Inside the car, the driver grips the steering wheel with a mask of pure, unwavering determination. She stares straight ahead, fully committed to the collision and ignoring the risk to herself. Bracing for the massive impact that is about to occur, she grit her teeth and shouts, "This is gonna hurt." The encounter ends in a violent smash as the front of the car slams directly into the muscular man with crushing force. He lets out a pained ache as the weight of the vehicle breaks through his physical defenses, sending blood spraying from his mouth. His eyes turn a shocked, dark red as he is finally taken down by the very threat he was mocked for ignoring. The car slams into the muscular fighter with a thunderous impact, the wham echoing throughout the parking garage. The sheer force of the collision is absolute, pinning the man beneath the front bumper and instantly halting his aggressive advance. It is a high-stakes gamble that successfully levels the playing field against his monstrous strength. A thick, white mist erupts from the wreckage with a persistent FSHHH sound, quickly obscuring the area. The air is filled with the hissing of the vehicle's damaged systems as steam billows into the corridor. The once violent confrontation is swallowed by the haze, leaving the outcome of the crash momentarily uncertain. Leaning heavily against the car, the driver lets out a pained groan as she recovers from the shock of the impact. Sweat beads on her forehead and her expression is twisted in agony, showing the heavy physical toll the maneuver took on her. Despite her injuries, she refuses to stay down, gritting her teeth as she prepares for the final confrontation. Stepping through the thinning smoke, She levels her handgun directly at the slumped figure on the ground. The sharp clack of her weapon being readied signals that the fight is effectively over. With a cold and steady aim, she delivers a final, lethal command, warning the man not to dare move an inch. A massive hand suddenly erupts with an ominous red aura, gripping a jagged piece of debris with a powerful grab. The dark energy F-wooms around the limb, signaling that the previous crushing blow failed to neutralize the threat. Despite being pinned by the weight of the vehicle, the fighter is already beginning to claw his way back to the surface with renewed, supernatural strength. Emerging from the wreckage and rising through the dust, the man presents a terrifying sight. His face is battered and smeared with blood, and one of his eyes glows with a haunting, predatory red light. He radiates a malevolent energy that suggests his physical form is being fueled by something far beyond human endurance, turning his injuries into a display of pure intimidation. The scarred, red-eyed man mocks the woman's authority, sneering that her status as a public officer is no reason for her to be so cocky. Unfazed, the officer readies her weapon and retorts that she is more than willing to make a lethal exception for a monster of his caliber. A series of gunshots ring out in rapid succession as the empty shell casings fall through the air. The bullets find their mark, tearing through the man's chest and arm as blood begins to trickle and ooze from the wounds. Despite the injuries, the man's expression twists into a sinister, wide grin. Declaring that playtime is over, the bloodied figure lunges forward in a frenzied charge toward the officer. The officer gasps in disbelief, horrified that her shots failed to faze him or even slow him down. Overwhelmed by shock and fear, her hands begin to tremble uncontrollably as she tries to maintain her grip on her weapon. The monster charges through a hail of gunfire, ignoring the bullets as he reaches out to seize the officer while she continues to fire in desperation. Before she can react, he suddenly snatches her, catching the terrified officer completely off guard with his overwhelming speed. A massive explosion erupts at the point of impact, and a mysterious man intervenes, shielding the officer and pulling her away from the blast. While holding her securely, the newcomer offers a brief, calm apology for having to get so close and personal during the rescue. Holding the officer safely, the mysterious savior ignites a flare of energy in his hand, cryptically noting that while water might normally stop fire, this situation is different. He stares down the monster, who is standing in a growing puddle of liquid, and cold-bloodedly mocks the creature by saying it will make for some great firewood. The monster is suddenly paralyzed by fear, gasping in horror as it recognizes the true nature and overwhelming scale of the hero's power. Declaring that the temperature is about to rise, the newcomer unleashes a massive, swirling torrent of flames that completely consumes the battlefield. A catastrophic explosion erupts, sending a massive pillar of fire and blinding light high into the air as the entire area is engulfed by the blast. Trapped at the heart of the inferno, the monster screams in agonizing pain as the intense heat begins to flare and burn through his body. As the initial blast subsides, the creature's charred form continues to smolder and glow, letting out one final, defiant roar amidst the rising steam. Completely broken and scorched by the flames, the monster's expression goes blank as he lets out weak, pained groans, succumbing to the overwhelming damage. With his eyes glowing with power, the man summons a blazing weapon known as the Howling Ember Blade. He leaps into the air to deliver a final, decisive strike, declaring that the monster's time has officially come to an end. The flaming blade slices cleanly through the creature's head, instantly silencing its screams with a lethal blow. As the steam rises from the battlefield, the man and the officer stand together, looking down at the smoldering remains of their fallen enemy. The scene shifts to the Class 13 auditorium at the school, where a dark and heavy presence looms over the vast, sunlit room. Inside, a monstrous creature lets out a roar as it lunges at a young man named Haseon, delivering a savage swipe that sends blood flying as he struggles to withstand the attack. Completely overwhelmed and covered in blood, Haseon winces in shock, desperately wondering how his opponent can possibly possess such insane speed. Seeing his friend in peril, a muscular ally shouts Haseon's name in alarm, while a blonde girl watches the brutal encounter from the sidelines with growing concern. Following the beast's brutal assault, blood begins to trickle from Haseon's fresh wounds as he struggles to maintain his footing against the powerful creature. Suddenly, a mysterious green energy erupts from within him, surging through his body and glowing intensely in his eyes as his injuries begin to heal instantly. The werewolf is left in a state of utter shock, growling in disbelief that a human can regenerate and wondering aloud if a figure named Huachuo worked on him as well. Keeping a close eye on his opponent, the creature notes that he has never seen a vagrant with such immense power, openly questioning Haseon's true identity. Fed up with the creature's talking, Haseon dismisses its words as mere whimpering and aggressively dares the puppy to stop talking and start fighting. The beast growls in confusion, questioning the young man's identity and wondering why a figure named Huachuo would allow a non-vagrant to stay at the school. Watching from the sidelines, the blonde ally observes the confrontation and notes that Haseon is being tactical by going straight for the leader of the pack. However, he recognizes that the opponent is much stronger than it looks and realizes that if he wants to help, he needs to take action immediately. Channeling his own hidden power, the blonde ally's eyes ignite with blue light as he manifests a glowing energy blade between his hands. With a determined shout to get the bear out of the picture, he lunges forward, delivering a powerful slash against the massive dark creature. He continues his rapid assault, mocking the werewolf's enormous size by claiming that its large frame leaves far too many vulnerable spots open to his attacks. Just as he begins to deliver a cocky final quip, he is suddenly cut short by a mysterious red blur, leaving him frozen in shock as the tides of the battle shift once again. The blonde-haired ally is caught off guard by a devastating blow from the werewolf, sending him reeling through the air with a powerful impact. The beast immediately follows up with a savage claw swipe, leaving the young man only enough time to gasp in panic as he realizes his peril. He slams violently into the auditorium floor with a thunderous crash, sending dust and debris flying in every direction. Lying broken among the wreckage of the floor, he lets out a pained groan as he struggles to recover from the brutal assault. Bloodied and pinned to the floor, Yongyong curses the powerful beast and desperately tries to push himself up, knowing he must hurry to help Haseon. Their muscular ally leaps into the fray, delivering a series of heavy, bone-crushing blows that connect directly with the dark monster. With a final surge of strength, he slams the beast into the ground with a thunderous crash, creating a massive impact that rattles the area. Calling out for Yongyong and Haseon, the fighter grits his teeth with a determined expression, fully realizing that both of his friends are in dire need of his assistance. Surrounded by an unrelenting wave of enemies, the fighter realizes that these monstrous creatures simply do not stop coming, no matter how many he faces. A sudden, high-speed movement flashes across the battlefield with a powerful hum as the intensity of the struggle continues to escalate. The young man is forced into a desperate dance of survival, narrowly avoiding the lethal, high-speed strikes of the werewolf as it lunges at him repeatedly. Strained and breathless, he acknowledges that his opponent is both incredibly strong and fast, causing him to wonder if this is what it feels like to face someone as formidable as Bam. A massive, clawed hand lunges forward with a deadly swish, nearly catching Haseon as he stares in shock at the sheer speed of the beast's attack. The werewolf effortlessly lifts Haseon into the air by his throat and mockingly asks if he is already exhausted, sneering that he can thank the weight of his own heavy ball fist for his current state. Haseon lets out an agonizing groan as he struggles desperately against the monster's iron grip, while his blonde companion looks on from the sidelines, paralyzed by the sight of his suffering. Sweating with intense fear, the blonde girl realizes that the overwhelming power of the creature is simply too much for Haseon to overcome. leaving him without a single chance of survival in his current state. While being strangled by the monster, Haseon desperately calls out to Lita, urging her to repeat the mysterious process she previously performed for Yiwoong. Recognizing that now is the time to act, Lita channels an intense blue aura, sensing Haseon's raw, powerful desire for the strength needed to survive his life-threatening situation. A brilliant blue flash erupts as the energy surges, focusing with blinding intensity as Lita attempts to unleash the power upon the struggling fighter. However, despite Haseon being mentally prepared for the transformation, Lita realizes that the power is not taking hold and questions if the failure is due to his human nature. The werewolf lunges forward with a murderous shout, delivering a savage, high-speed swipe aimed directly at the defenseless Haseon. The beast's razor-sharp claws pierce straight through the young man's body with a sickening sound, dealing a devastating and lethal blow. Paralyzed by the agonizing impact, Haseon gasps in pain as a violent spray of blood spurts from his mouth, his body finally reaching its limit. He collapses onto the cold floor with a heavy thud, lying motionless in a pool of blood while the towering monster stands over his defeated form. Haseon lies broken on the floor, trembling in shock as he realizes his voice has failed him and frantically concludes that his wounds will not regenerate in time for him to escape his current peril. The werewolf stands over its prey with heavy thuds, mockingly telling the boy that no amount of regeneration can save a vagrant from a slashed throat before his eventual demise. With a sadistic laugh, the beast continues to taunt its victim, reveling in the boy's helplessness and expressing a twisted curiosity about how much further he will fall before the end. Meanwhile, at the school headquarters control room, an array of monitors fill the silence with sharp, repetitive beeps, signaling a critical alert as they observe the battle's grim turn. Deep within the school's headquarters control room, a pink-haired woman and a scientist monitor the chaotic events unfolding through their surveillance screens. The doctor breaks into a fit of gleeful laughter, openly finding the carnage and desperation to be incredibly entertaining. Chuckling in agreement, the woman notes that the fighters' desperation is palpable, coldly viewing them as nothing more than living chess pieces on a board. The scientist enthusiastically confirms her assessment, ecstatic that the ongoing bloodshed is providing him with an abundance of valuable data to analyze. Back in the control room, the pink-haired woman questions why the scientist intervened to stop the boy from using his primary ability to absorb powers. The scientist smugly reveals that he didn't stop the power, but instead diverted it to Imugi, explaining that such a supreme gift cannot be shared with anyone else. Accepting the explanation, the woman nods in understanding and offers a brief apology for her initial misunderstanding of his grand design. From their safe vantage point, they watch the monitor as the boy lets out a pained scream, helpless and suffering under the weight of his injuries. Staring intently into the monitor with a manic, wide-eyed grin, the doctor lets out a long and sinister cackle.